Good afternoon, high noon hour, lunchtime for everybody. So I wrote on my headline for today: two shows, an hour video of Donald Trump Jr. with somebody important, really good one I think, and of course all the other good stuff. Today is the last day of the year, like what they say. So we'll see what happens tomorrow, if anything happens. Kind of muggy and damp out, and rain or something supposed to happen today, and stayed in. See how many we get in chat this hour. Still no Billy Bean out yet. So we'll be starting here in about a minute or two.
I have brain cancer. What should I?
Just getting everything all ready here. Hey, Tim. You see what I wrote on my headline for today? Got two shows, and Don Jr. has an hour video that's pretty good from Telegram. So we got a lot of good stuff. And of course, what I was saying, getting the show that tomorrow is supposed to be the first of the year. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. I don't know, saying this is the time when everybody's at work, so hope they're all listening. See how many we get in chat. First one's going to be about 5 minutes.
Girls and
enjoy it while it lasts, Raiden.
what do you mean?
Did you really think that
Yeah.
civilians would be granted unrestricted access to such powerful military weapons forever?
This
Military
is an interesting
weapons.
one,
Are
Maria.
you implying that this technology was created by the government?
Of course it was. This AI technology has been used by the intelligence
About 5
agencies to
minutes.
warp the public's perception of reality for years, all in the name of national security, of course.
But why would they suddenly make the tech public and let everyone start using it?
Why would we indeed, Raiden?
What? What in the hell are you?
Your question is irrelevant. By creating a new problem, we can cultivate a desired reaction to it in order to manufacture consent for our preferred solutions. In short, it's justification for a war.
A war? On who or what?
A war on misinformation. By arming the public with these AI weapons, everyone becomes a potential enemy combatant. Then we will have justification for unprecedented security measures.
What?
It all comes down to confusion and identity, Raiden.
Identity?
Identity. This AI technology is Pandora's box. Pretty soon the internet will be mired in total illusion. Perfect AI speech, audio, and video synthesis will drown out reality. Then AI bots will flood social media. No one will be able to tell the difference between interacting with an AI machine or a real human online. Even telephone
Anybody
calls
see
will
this
become
clip?
totally untrustworthy. That is when we will present our solution. Mandatory digital identity verification for all humans at all times. The only way to ensure that you're dealing with a real flesh and blood human being and not an AI-generated mirage.
But why?
Total information control. For too long, the internet has acted as a double-edged sword. Its potential for anonymous user activity allows anyone at all to spread any thoughts, ideas, or information patterns that they please with impunity. State secrets, dangerous ideas, ludicrous conspiracy theories, misinformation, and disinformation. Until now, there has been no easy solution to this problem. Our digital identity platform will finally put an end to anonymity online. It will allow us to trace misinformation and other dangerous communications to its source and exact appropriate justice.
That's crap! I won't go along with it, and others will resist.
You won't have a choice,
What do
right?
you think, guys?
Do you think your bank is willing to risk doing business with an artificial
this one?
human instead of a real one? Our digital identity platform will be required not only to access web services, but to pay for your internet connection in the first place.
You can't just censor the entire internet because of a new software technology. Who are you to define what's misinformation anyways?
That sounds like something a misinformation terrorist would say.
I know about the deep fakes you've been making of me, Raiden.
What? No. I was just adjusting the AI settings and...
Controlling the output of generative AI technology is simple. We will create context for its use. First, we will censor any use related to social taboos. Then we will censor anything else that we desire. If anyone complains, we will accuse them of wanting to engage in or promote social taboos.
That's what it means to create context.
We will corral the use of AI by making appeals to bias, ethics, and copyright laws. You will still have access to generative AI in some form, but it will be crippled, limited, controlled, and it will be monitored. Anything that you generate will be cryptographically signed with your digital ID, so that its provenance can be ascertained if it's later deemed to be problematic.
What gives you the right to control what people can do with their computers?
The public at large will give us that right, because they will be desperate for a solution to the problem we created. They will eagerly give us the keys to the castle. Then, we alone will define what is fiction and what is reality, what is human and what is machine. After letting you get a brief taste of our power, we will reclaim our monopoly on misinformation and put an end to misuse of the internet once and for all.
You won't get away with this.
It is probable that we will. Now get back to work generating your precious AI waifus, Raiden, our beloved prompters. Enjoy yourselves.
How was that one? So the next one is Trish. Just came out with a 6-minute one just now.
Your eyeglass prescription, or if your prescription changes frequently.
The judge in the Elon Musk case has just been booted right off. Take a good look at her. This is one Kathleen McCormick there in Delaware. And the reason she's getting booted is because she showed some alleged bias. She said, no, like I didn't do this, or maybe like somebody got into my account. It wasn't really me. I don't remember liking that. Even if I liked it, it's not that big a deal. But she was on LinkedIn looking at some of the posts, and she liked something that was very derogatory on Elon Musk. So she's kind of tipping her hand. I mean, as if she hasn't tipped her hand enough. Do you remember the compensation issue that was going on in Delaware? Like the board decided on his compensation. He decided on his compensation. He was going to be compensated all in stock. And it turned out that the stock went way, way up. So when it came time for him to be compensated, people were freaking out saying, that's not fair. That's not fair. And that's not fair. I was like, well, this is the deal. You guys arranged, and he wasn't getting a salary or anything. He agreed to be compensated in his own company that he founded stocks. Actually, technically, I don't think he actually founded it initially. He came in the very, very beginning and built it up into what it is today. So therefore, he ought to get the deal that he executed. And they were like, no. And then, of course, the law firm that brought the suit, they wanted, this was a you-know-what load of money. I can't remember the exact figure off the top of my head, but it was crazy. Anyway, this is the judge that was all for making sure Elon couldn't get his money, to the point where he said, all right, see you, Delaware. I'm heading down to Texas. And he did. And so this is the new story just out within the last couple hours. It came out that last week, lawyers from Musk demanded Kathleen McCormick, recuse herself because she, quote, pressed a button indicated, per the New York Post, by the way, indicating that she supported a post mocking Elon Musk for being found liable for tweets that he posted in 2022 about his $44 billion takeover of Twitter. Yeah, do you remember that? Like, it looked for a brief minute that he might not have to take over Twitter. And what did I tell you guys at the time? Business reporter that I am. I told you he's not going to have a choice. Like, he's going to be taking over Twitter, whether he wants to or not. I mean, maybe he had buyer's remorse. He did the deal and he's like, holy God, I'm paying $44 billion for this thing. I'll tell you, Elon, it was worth it now, wasn't it? And it was the single most important thing, I think, towards making sure that we had some freedom of the press, and we had our First Amendment here in the United States of America. I mean, think about it. When the other team was in charge, heck, they let the Ayatollah post all he wanted, but Donald Trump was coming down. You know how many friends I have that got their Twitter accounts taken away under the last, I'm going to call them the regime. You're talking about no kings. Wow. I mean, you could only say certain things, right? Well, this was a big deal. So there were a couple of tweets that the jury found misleading back at this particular time. And as a result, there's a big lawsuit out in California. At the time, apparently Musk was saying, well, this merger is temporarily on hold because he was concerned about any fake spam bot accounts. So maybe he wasn't going to pay this much. Again, I told you at the time, don't listen to him. And I like Elon. Okay. A lot of you were like, Trish. And I'm like, it's nothing against Elon. It's just that he signed a deal. He agreed with no due diligence, right? He said, I'm just buying it as is. So it's like you buy the house as is. You say, I'm going to pay cash and I'm not going to do any checks on this thing. We don't need to make sure that the roof is okay or the foundation's okay. I'm just buying as is. Well, that's what he did with this company. And so he also sent out a tweet saying that fake accounts could represent much higher than 20% of Twitter's users, and stated that the deal could not move forward unless Twitter's CEO could prove that the bot percentage was actually around the 5% level reported in the filings. And so they're saying, he really didn't have that much information to go on. This was his opinion, and he shouldn't have been tweeting this stuff because that affected the deal. And as a result, I guess it'll probably get appealed, but the judge decided that, okay, they have a point. So somebody posted about this. This is a LinkedIn post that came out, and I realize the lettering is really small for all of us right here. But basically, the post was saying, Elon, now you have to pay for that because turns out, you were wrong and we were right. That's the short version of it. And what did this judge do? Apparently she liked it, or her account liked it. And so Musk's legal team went in there about 5 days ago and they said, hey, we need a recusal for this lady because she's supposed to not be biased, but she's totally biased. I mean, this reminds me of the Trump cases, right? All over again. So you get some biased judge. Now she says, no, I'm not biased. I'm not biased. This was not intentional. I didn't know that my account liked it. I didn't know what happened. You know, I've had some problems. My account got hacked, this, that, and the other. And so it's not my fault. But anyway, nonetheless, the motion for recusal rests, she said, on a false premise that I support a LinkedIn post about Mr. Musk, which I do not, in fact, support. I am not biased against the defendants in these actions, but the motion for reassignment is granted and should be obvious. I'm going to go on a limb and say, yeah, it kind of should be obvious, right? Like if you're actually, or whoever that's using your account is liking posts that are making fun of the guy whose fate you're supposed to decide.
Okay, the first Trish will be our video. Let's do another short one here. Okay.
Concerns remain as war in the Middle East highlights American vulnerabilities. Houthis join the war with missile attacks on Israel. Beginning with international events in the Middle East, the situation continues to deteriorate as Iranian attacks throughout the region have become vastly more effective over the past few days. Iranian targeting of locations in Israel has continued to increase, with multiple targets being struck over the weekend. The refinery in Haifa was struck yesterday afternoon, which resulted in a fire at the facility. Separately, a factory was hit in the industrial zone of Neot Havov, which also resulted in a fire. American bases in Kuwait were also hit overnight with Iranian missiles targeting barracks facilities. In the Red Sea, over the weekend, the Houthis entered the war, firing one cruise missile toward Israel. Analysts comment. The Houthis have chosen a soft start to the war, and the missile that was fired was reportedly intercepted. Nevertheless, this is an indication that another front has been opened up, and since the Ford carrier strike group is no longer in the Red Sea due to moving off station for repairs, missile defense in the region is less effective at the precise moment that the Houthis are entering the war. In Saudi Arabia, following a series of Iranian strikes, several strategic American aircraft were destroyed at Prince Sultan Air Base. Several KC-135 refueling tankers were destroyed, along with at least one E-3 Sentry AWACS early warning aircraft. Concerning casualties, official casualty figures were classified at the beginning of the war. However, the Pentagon reports approximately 10 U.S. service members were wounded during this attack. In Jerusalem, controversy has continued throughout the Old City as Israeli forces continue to inflame tensions with Christians throughout the region. Yesterday, Israeli police disrupted Palm Sunday proceedings as Cardinal Pizzabella of the Latin Patriarchate of Jerusalem was prevented from attending the procession at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Analysts comment, this incident was so deliberate that even Mike Huckabee spoke out against it, calling the incident unfortunate overreach. Considering Huckabee's infamy on this issue at this point, combined with the historical record and the biblical context, it's a helpful barometer to gauge how serious of an incident this was, which increases tensions at a time when the stakes are already quite high around the region. Analyst comments for this wire. The successful Iranian strike at Prince Sultan Air Base was very significant for many reasons. For one, taking out major American assets is a big deal, and the loss of EW aircraft will degrade American capabilities. The most obvious question is why these aircraft were being staged within Iranian missile range in the first place. The answer to this will be debatable. Maybe military leadership knew the danger and decided that the risk was worth it, or maybe they got cocky and ignored the risk. There's no way to know right now, but it is not a good look for the U.S. Air Force to put these airframes well within striking range of the Iranians. For context, the B-52s, which are conducting bombing raids in Iran, are mostly being launched all the way from England, simply due to the risk of housing them closer to the fight. However, when it comes to some aircraft, we gave the Iranians clean access to Tanker Row, which allowed them to destroy several strategic aircraft on the ground. This small detail, while not particularly groundbreaking, also serves as a reminder for how complicated wars can be. Nothing is as simple as the textbook says it will be, and in wartime everything gets vastly more difficult. Vulnerabilities also increase because when things get complicated, the stakes are higher, and the room for error is substantially reduced. One early warning aircraft getting struck on the ground is one radar dish out of the fight, an airspace sector that will need to be filled by another asset. This idea also applies to life on the American home front as well. One ship failing to make its run through the Strait of Hormuz can swing world markets wildly, because there's a lot riding on that one ship. On any given day, there is some elasticity with world markets, and the petroleum sector is a good example of that, due to the ramp up and ramp down of petroleum production, which takes some time. But at some point, with a major global choke point out of the picture, there's no telling how things will work out as the effects of two major wars on two continents, Europe and the Middle East, come to bear. This concludes The Wire for 2300.
Sorry about that if I played that. I thought I might have played that yesterday.
The future. CSRQ SM social management software is the program that will be used worldwide by select governmental and banking institutions when the financial reset occurs. The financial reset will be a complete restructuring of the current system and eliminating all existing fiat currencies overnight. The CSRQ SM software will intercept all banking transactions, all credit and debit card transactions, and all known financial transactions over a period of 3 to 5 days once the system is activated. The currency planned to be used is known as USDR. For those with a Japanese bank account, for example, their yen will be converted to USDR overnight. Nearly all countries on Earth will use the new system. The software is designed to process all financial transactions centrally and issue social credit scores for all users. When the conversion takes place, you will see new information when you log into your bank account, including screens indicating your social credit score. The score will operate on a scale of 1 to 1,000, with 1,000 being the highest score achievable and 1 being the lowest. No bank account shall contain more than 1,000 in USDR at any time for Class C accounts, which includes 99% of the world. Class C accounts will receive 1,000 USDR once at the beginning of each month. Separate accounts known as Class S accounts are reserved for government leaders and the highest echelons of the rich and elites of the world. Class S accounts can contain unlimited USDR funds and have additional privileges. Everyone must immediately comply with the new system. Those who resist, those who protest or complain online will receive immediate fines and deductions to their score and account. It's expected in the first month about 20% of the human population will have their accounts reduced to nearly zero due to the bad behavior, but that by the second month, this behavior will be corrected. According to the documentation for the software, once people realize they can't have more than $1,000 and can easily lose it with unapproved behavior, they will change the behavior and comply. Each class within the CSRQ-SM software app has specific parameters. Each class contains dozens of metrics and variables. Above me is an example. C, common class, amount of accounts, 7.1 billion or 95.5% of humans. C, vaccination required, yes. Booster shots, yes. You have to have 2 or more. Asset limitations, yes. No greater than 5,000. Carbon score, yes. Restricts travel and food consumption. 1 is lowest and best. 500 is highest and worst. S, sovereign class. Amount of accounts, 7 to 8 million or 1% of humans. No requirements. Restricted amount of accounts, 250 million or 3.36% of humans. Look at the requirement. Pause and read. Q, quarantine. Amount of accounts, 75 million or 1% of humans. Look at those requirements. Pause.
Oh, I guess that one's how it ended there. See what we got next. There's new lady on Telegram here. Three minutes.
The next steps that they will be making are, first, to create a fossil fuel crisis, to crash all the world's economy, and then to put in the government salary. They are going to crash the stock markets. They're going to
I don't know if
crash
you
the
played this
crypto
one or not.
markets. They are going to crash all pension funds. This is the first step. When the first step is done, and most people have taken the government salary, then the next stage comes in. Number 2 is creating a climate change crisis. A summer so hot, people are dying, animals are dying, crops are ruined. There are many forest fires. The water levels go down. This is the artificial climate change crisis. Then they're going to place in the system the CO2 quote. So you have a government salary, and now you need to follow the CO2 quota. And when those two are done, the next phase comes. And the next phase is another COVID pandemic. And then they're going to put in place the new injections. Now, if you don't have the injections,
Come here.
you also will not have any access to anything, especially food. Anything that is related to electricity will be under their rule. So these are the next steps over the 4 years that are coming now. It does not have to go this way, but it can go this way. It is their plan. Everything will...
Chico, you're making me mess up here. Ugh. Sorry about that last video, you guys. We'll go on to the next one. I got. Let's do your second Trish video.
What happens in those first few minutes is the reason your gas disappears so fast. You own a car.
How does the government prove this? If $700 million went out of the city in Minneapolis over 2 years, and that's what was declared, right, by TSA. That's what they actually declared. Imagine how much went out that wasn't declared. Was this all part of the hand-to-hand, mouth-to-mouth, person-to-person Huala money system? And can you get at it? Well, you know who knows how to get at it? None other than our Treasury Secretary of the United States. He knows how to track every single dollar. Scott Bessent is putting out rewards, all right? Rewards, big time. This just being announced today, up to 30%. So we're talking billions of dollars potentially that could be rewarded in Minnesota and elsewhere. And elsewhere, let's be really clear, because it's not just Minnesota, it's also California and a few other states that are wrapped up in all of this. Let's go to the Treasury Secretary speaking on another one of my former employers. Gosh darn it, it's good to be over here. Please make sure you subscribe, share, like, all that. Here he is speaking to CNBC this morning.
It's very exciting. I think it's going to be a great way to ferret out waste, fraud, and abuse, starting in Minneapolis, which has been ground zero. So we are encouraging whistleblowers who know about fraud, people who are stealing from the American taxpayer, to come forward. At Treasury, we're setting up a website, and we will be giving rewards up to 10 to 30% of the fines that we levy.
Wow. So up to 10 to 30%, you get up to 30% on the fines. Now, I don't know how that works, because I would think if you steal $1 billion, the fine should be like $1.5 billion, right? Like it shouldn't be like 10 million. I would think it would be at least the amount that you stole and then some. So if that's the case, you could talk about a heck of a lot of money. I mean, this could be monstrous. And what he's betting on is greed. Okay. Total, pure, raw greed. He said it himself. Take a listen to Treasury Secretary of the United States, Scott Bessent, explaining how he's convinced he's going to get it all.
we will find out who's done this. We are going to put in effect a whistleblower program, and my sense is that the rats will turn on each other. Like it's like the scorpion. It's in their nature.
Woo! Okay, that's an aggressive thing to say, but he's like, they're all going to rat each other out. And once they do that, we have our case. This is what the president's been asking him to build, of course. And he, as Treasury Secretary of the United States, has a duty both through his oversight of the IRS as well as his oversight of terrorist financing. Because do not forget, one of the big things underlying all of this is concern that if it was part of the Hawala system and you've got money coming out of Minneapolis and making its way to Somalia, that is Hawala that's involved, and Hawala always takes its cut. And that gets fed out to terror organizations. So he has a duty there as Treasury Secretary to track this money down. And he promised he would. Here he is getting into it on CBS about a month or two ago. Watched.
The president told you, though, this week to look into Somalis who, quote, ripped off that state for billions of dollars. He said they contribute nothing. What exactly are you investigating?
Well, Margaret, to be clear, the initial fraud that was discovered by the IRS, for which I'm the acting commissioner, is discovered by IRS Criminal Investigations Unit. This was not an endogenous thing that the state of Minnesota decided we had to go in and clean up the mess for them. And this is part of the continued cleanup. A lot of money has been transferred from the individuals who committed this fraud, including those who donated to the governor, donated to Representative Omar, donated to A.G. Ellison, but they've been transferred to something called MBSs. And those are
mortgage-backed security. What do you mean?
If you live in the United States, there is something horrifying that is about to happen, and yet most Americans have no clue.
Sorry?
Transferred to what?
These are money the Bureau services, and they are wire transfer organizations that are outside the regulated banking system. And that money has gone overseas, and we are tracking that both to the Middle East and to Somalia to see what the uses of that have been.
Okay, but you have no evidence of that money being used to fuel terrorism at this point, which is what some conservative writers are alleging.
That's why it's an investigation. We started it last week. We'll see where it goes. But I can tell you that, it's terrible.
2.5. So that was 2 Trish videos. Now the next 8 are short ones. Then we'll do the hour video. The first 3 is the lady from TikTok, the good one with the glasses. Well, they both got glasses. She has a little longer ones today.
Slowly wake up a little bit. Some people are questioning stuff that us researchers are putting out there, stuff that they denied before because they're so indoctrinated, but they're thinking outside the box now. And not everyone is going to wake up. There's going to be a lot of people that never wake up. They're so brainwashed, so indoctrinated, they will never, ever wake up. But they put stuff right in front of your face. Like Michael Jackson all of a sudden has a TikTok page up. It's verified. I mean, out of the blue. Come on now. These people are going to slowly make an appearance again over time. It will be brought out there. It will be told to the public, okay? These people are still around. Some of them, most of them are gone. They went to Cuba. But there are some of them that had to be pulled out and put in the WP group. I got to watch what I say. JFK Jr. is still alive. Michael Jackson is still alive. Prince is still alive. Jimi Hendrix is still alive. Robin Williams is still alive. They are, whether you want to believe it or not. Stop being so brainwashed and having so much trust in government and authority and what you've been told. You've got to think outside the box. You have to, because everything has been a lie. Anyways, I wrote 2 tiny little books, so I don't bore people. I kept them real short and sweet, but I have to do stuff like that and get my information out there because they keep taking my pages down. They don't like truthers. So I wrote The Firmament Above for you people that think we're on a spinning ball, spinning around like a madman, okay? You might want to go get that because I point out some stuff that's pretty obvious. I also have Ancient Egypt and the real Israel on where that's at, which is right here. It's not where they told us. They lied to us about everything to take us away from our Creator and take us away from the power that we hold is unbelievable. We hold the power, but they didn't want that. They wanted to control us and flip it so that they hold the power. So you got to learn to think outside the box instead of hopping on people's posts and basically, you know, degrading them because they've done so much research and they're trying to tell you, think outside the box, go get some old encyclopedias, some old maps, everything from the 1800s and prior. Do a little research yourself, and then you will question things and you will see that, wait a minute, I've been lied to. We've all been lied to. So anyways, use discernment. Have a great day. Stay awake. Keep pushing truth out there. If you want to get my little tiny books, the link is in my bio. Also subscribe to my YouTube because I roll all my videos from TikTok over to YouTube so I don't lose the videos because my pages keep coming down. Anyways, I have this one right here, Gen X Gen number 3. I'm starting to set up Gen X Gen number 4. Gen X Gen number 2 is about to come down. It's like a game we're playing with these people. Anyways, I'm not going to stop. So have a great day. Stay.
Okay, that's the first one.
Come down. They violated it immediately. And then I came over to this page and tried to be a little more discreet and put the information out there on who the real vice president is. And what did they do? They went and violated that one too on this page. So it looks like I'm going to write a book. That's all. I'm going to get my information out there, TikTok. No one's going to stop me. So I will just put some information in a small little book like the ones I've been writing, and I'll let you guys know when it's done. And I'll start tonight when I'm done with work. I'm going to push truth, and that's the bottom line. So people need to know who, if you don't already know, and I'm talking about this is for the sleepers, people trying to wake up, who the real VICE president is. So I'll start writing information and I'll continue doing it and sticking it in little books. If you want to get my other ones, the link is in my bio. There's 2 out so far. They're very small books, so I don't bore people. Keep it short and sweet. It's time to write another one. That's all. I won't be silenced. Have a great day.
One more. We might have played this, but it said 21 minutes ago. So I don't know what the date was on it.
And when that happens, that's when you know the movie's over. And it's going to happen. We don't know exactly when. It's coming, though.
Good to replay it.
Only the top guys, the generals and the admirals that are running the operation are the only ones that know when this is going to happen. But it's coming. He's going to exit. And as we know, Trump is a character. It's true republic under military power is what Trump stands for. And the one from Cheyenne Mountain will come on out and make his appearance. Anyways, what a time to be alive. But just know that will be coming. It's not going to make... Some people are going to be really upset because they love Trump. And I get it. But a good portion of us already know that's really not the real Trump. But it's coming. His exit will be coming. Have a great day.
Remember, guys, at some point, Trump's going to be exiting the movie. Don't forget.
Got the 3 latest with her.
Of where the fire aid money had gone to. There was a fundraiser that was created and over $100 million was raised towards direct relief to the fire victims in LA. This letter was sent to Pam Bondi to ask for the investigation of where the funds went. People like Spencer Pratt, this guy has been very loud about the fact that none of the fire victims, including him and his wife, have received any funds. And he came out with a video calling out the fact that it's been discovered that Gavin Newscomb and a nonprofit that his wife is tied to took some of the relief funds. And this is where we revealed the shady Newscomb. So being who I am, I just don't take anything at a surface level on social media. I decided to go to the Fire Aid website, where it does display that a total of 75 million has been given out of the 100 million. And I clicked on round 2. It starts off with this one where it talks about how $700,000 was given for critical information for fire victims. Then when you scroll down, you do see Cal Volunteers, which is an organization that got a grant that took some of the money. I need you to pay attention to the one beneath it that says Center for Nonprofit Management. Remember that. This story started gaining more traction and more coverage started hitting this because you go to Cal Volunteer and you check out the commission. Guess who is the honorary chair? That's right, Jennifer Newsom. Guys, Gavin Newscomb's wife. She is the honorary chairman of Cal Volunteer. Decided to go back to the Fire Aid website. And guess what is conveniently missing on the list of people that got grants on round 2? Remember how I told you Center for Nonprofit Management? Below that and above that was Cal Volunteer. But today on the website, if you go search round 1 and round 2, somehow Cal Volunteer disappeared from the list of people that got grants. Now what appears above Center for Nonprofit Management is California Local Conservation Corps. Yes, you can scour through that list. You're not going to find Cal Volunteer on there anymore. What are you hiding, Newscomb? We already figured it out that your wife is leading one of the nonprofits that got the grant. So we already know you took the money from the fire victim. You refused to bring voter ID back to get federal funding to the fire victim. So when you're out there on the campaign trail talking about how much you care about Californians, you're lying. We caught you lying. You're stealing from the fire victim. You somehow conveniently got the name deleted off the website. You are trash, Gavin Newscomb.
Hey, lady up there, lady from California. And okay, we got one more short one, our lady, funny lady on TikTok. Then we'll do the hour video.
It's for you. Tune in. I want to let you know about several things that are going on. Number one, Iran has clarified that their draft age that they lowered to the age of 12 is for boys that want to just help out in the war, like doing patrol and, just kind of watching over things. They're not going to be involved in the actual, fighting. Okay, let me tell you, President Trump, you are the man. Let me tell you what this man has just wrote on Truth Social today, in case you were not paying attention. Hang on. Let me read it to you. All of those countries that can't get jet fuel because of the Strait of Hormuz, like the United Kingdom, which refused to get involved in the decapitation of Iran, I have a suggestion for you. Number one, buy from the United States. We have plenty. And number two, build up some delayed courage, go to the Strait and take it. You'll have to start learning how to fight for yourself. The USA won't be there to help you anymore, just like you weren't there for us. Iran has been essentially gone, decimated. The hard part is done. Go get your own oil. Well, you know what? Good for you, President Trump. Good for you for standing up for the USA. We are tired of carrying the weight of the world on our backs, okay? The other thing I want to tell you guys, I never agree with the liberals. As you know, I cannot stand them. I block them on my page. I have no way of agreeing with anything they say, but however, with this, I'm going to stun and shock everybody. The liberals have done something that I completely agree with. I'm on their side with. These No Kings protests, I have to say they're working. I have yet to see a king take over the United States So keep doing what you're doing, Robert De Niro, and keep doing what you're doing, paid leftists. Y'all are keeping the kings out of here. Good job. The other thing I wanted to tell you about, the Muslim mayor Mandami, who under Sharia law, gay people get thrown off of buildings. That's the least of of what they do to them. However, the cool Mandami has put out a tweet basically saying that, we are just welcoming and loving all trans people. This is your day. LGBTQ10, we love you and we're here for you. It's almost like leading the lambs to slaughter. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not how you believe. And yet you want to come on here and act like you're cool with this stuff, that your own people throw people off buildings for that. Wonder what that end game is. I don't know. Anyway, just want to let you guys have a little update. Iran has still not surrendered. I don't think they're going to surrender. And I think that what will happen is what I said before, they'll start blowing their own selves up. By the way, they have announced today that they're going to start taking tolls for you to get through that strait. Okay, with what? What you going to use? A water gun? You going to use a paintball gun? What you going to use? Anyway, guys, take care. Have a great Tuesday. Guys, I almost forgot the best thing of all. Our 250th anniversary from being independent from England. How about President Trump has invited the King and Queen of England to celebrate with us? They said yes. Gotta love this man. How can you not love this man?
Okay, that was the first one with her. Well, of course, Billy Bean just came out, 18 minutes. But we're going to do an hour one. Chico, the humidity's bad today, buddy. I can't open the windows. Okay, I got the air on. I hope everybody gets to listen to this one. This one might be pretty good. "58 minutes. Come on. What are we doing here?
Spy, minor details like that, So
here we go.
That's going to be a big one. And coming up, John Solomon will be here with big developments out of the Ukraine and Democrat kickback schemes to the DNC and to the Joe Biden campaign. So we're going to get into all of that in just a moment. So make sure you're liking, sharing, subscribing. Okay, hit the little like button right now. It's so easy. When we finish up here, share with your friends, subscribe so you never miss one of these major episodes. If you do miss the show here on Rumble, go over to Apple, Spotify, and catch it there. If your friends get their podcast that way, send it to them. It's that simple. You guys are the front line of defense for all this stuff. We need you guys to participate. And for all of the top headlines that we cover on the show, go over to my news app, MXM News, like minute by minute, MXM News, where you can get the mainstream news without the mainstream bias. And of course, guys, please don't forget about our brave sponsors for having the guts to support this program. It's a really big deal. Support those who share your values and will put themselves in the crosshairs to make a point. So I think it's a really big deal and something we all have to think about. And guys, we have a brand new sponsor, YRefi, where you can invest in America's future. It's their mission to provide private student loan borrowers a second chance while creating opportunities for eligible accredited investors. And as an accredited investor, when you invest in YVerify, your interest rate is fixed. And you have the freedom to take your monthly interest income or reinvest it, whatever you choose, all while investing in America's future and our next generation. For more information, just call 877-80-INVEST or log investYrefi.com. Just that easy. For complete details, make sure to review the private placement memo and scan this QR code to view the disclosures. YRefi, investing in America's future. Let's get into some of the top headlines. So Saturday was supposed to be, this massive, no kings protest, Here we go again. It didn't work out the first time, so we're going to try again. The left's big moment. Millions of people marching for reasons they can't entirely understand or articulate, other than, I guess, obsessive Trump derangement syndrome, and also because a lot of these people are probably being paid. And like any good left-wing riot, they had to attack a courthouse at some point during the night. In Los Angeles, a group laid siege to the federal courthouse in downtown Los Angeles, where they were smashing concrete blocks and throwing them at federal officers. DHS personnel in riot gear were assaulted and multiple arrests were made. Check this out. This is the same playbook we saw in 2020, guys. Basically, the same people. Probably, just change the T-shirt, change the flag, the slogan, whatever it is. They all look the same. Same tactics. Dress it up as resistance, and then start attacking federal buildings and assaulting law officers. I remember when that was an insurrection, but if you're a Democrat, it's clearly not. It's just protest, paid or not. And meanwhile, guys, in New York, the mask came all the way off because we've got video of a communist group marching, openly chanting, there is only one solution, communist revolution. Check this one out.
Working class revolution! Working class revolution!
Solution! There is only one solution! Communist revolution! Communist revolution! There is only one solution! There is only one solution! Communist revolution! Yeah! Communism is gonna win, baby! After liberation! Down for their occupation! Down their occupation! Down their occupation! Hands off the Middle East! From the belly of the beast! From the belly of the beast! Hands off the Middle East! Hands off the Venezuela! Hands off Venezuela! Hands off Cuba! Hands off the Middle East! No more class war! Neither party represents you. Neither party represents you.
No war for the class war! 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 From the belly of the beast! Hands off the Middle East! From the belly of the beast! Hands off the Middle East! Hands off the Middle East!
So let me get this straight, guys. They call themselves, no kings. They claim they're defending democracy, and their solution is a communist dictatorship. I mean, that's the plan. Doesn't seem like it. I mean, I think a communist dictatorship is sort of like the closest thing to a king we could probably have. No kings, but they'll take a Stalin, maybe a Maduro, a Mao. They'll take a Castro, but, definitely not a Trump. I mean, obviously can't have that. And like I've told you, these protests aren't organic. They're highly organized. They're highly manufactured. In fact, an incredible investigative thread dropped this week from Data Republican, exposing a man named Stephen A. Cash, a former CIA officer who worked in the Balkans during the Clinton era, who then served as a senior advisor at DHS Intelligence and Analysis under Biden. After my father won in 2016, Steve Cash co-founded something called the Steady State, a group of 340 plus former intelligence community officials. Some of the same people who signed, that fake letter claiming the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation. And he's admitted on video to having played a role in planning the No Kings process. Check this out.
March leads me to both.
Every blurry and low vision sufferer must try this daily ritual that is leaving doctors speechless. If you wear glasses or contacts, you must see this. An award-winning...
The month of March coming up, and a march, which is the No Kings March, which will be on March 28th all around the United States, probably going to be the biggest mass march demonstration in American history. We are going to be there. The Steady State, we are partners with many, many organizations that range from one end of the spectrum to another end of the spectrum of political views, of specific views. It's time to get out in the street and demonstrate the resolve of the American people to stay a democracy. I attended a planning meeting actually for the No Kings rally, March 28th. There's my plug again. And I left it practically in tears. Thousands of people are involved in the planning of this.
In case we missed it, his company, Deck Prism LLC, holds over $15 million of Department of Energy contracts, including sole source, meaning, the only guy that can compete in it, non-competed contracts, while donating 100% to Democrats over 20 years. Again, this is not organic. It's highly organized. And most of these folks are either being paid or they're just useful idiots in the Democratic machine. And speaking of useful idiots for foreign adversaries, Eric Swalwell seems to be hitting new levels of panic over his infamous relationship with Chinese spy Fang Fang. FBI Director Kash Patel is pushing to declassify and release the investigative files on Congressman Eric Swalwell and Christine Fang, better known as Fang Fang, the Chinese spy who infiltrated his office, helped him with fundraising, placed an intern in his congressional offices, and had what the classified intelligence report describes as an intricate and intimate relationship with him, including, and I'm being delicate here, certain sexual acts. FBI agents in California have been directed to gather and redact documents for release to senior administration officials. And the Bureau is even discussing sending agents to China to interview Fang because they believe she has even more damaging information on this clown. And what does Swalwell do? He goes on X and says, Donald Trump is targeting me. He's scared. I mean, think about that. The guy who was on the Intelligence Committee subpoenaed me, went after me, my family, never met a camera he didn't love, got out there talking about all these things and insurrection and Russia collusion. The guy's apparently sleeping with a Chinese spy. Yeah. Oh, no, it's Donald Trump targeting him. Not like, I don't know, maybe the American people should target a congressman on an intelligence committee who's sleeping with a Chinese spy. Just maybe, Eric, just maybe you're the bad guy. Eric, buddy, I want you to take a look at a banner that flew over the protest this weekend. My father isn't a king, but he is your daddy. And by the way, Swalwell is currently running for governor of California because he wasn't bad enough in Congress. You get to be governor. I mean, that's what happens. When you're failing in some sort of political position in California, they actually promote you. That seems to be something that happens over and over again. Just look at the current governor. So the voters of the largest state in the union really deserve to know how exactly a Chinese spy can compromise a sitting member of Congress, a sitting member of the House Intelligence Committee. What did she get access to? I think inquiring minds and anyone with a brain would want to know. What did she send back to Beijing? And why was none of this ever prosecuted? Now, speaking of the radical left losing their minds, I need you guys to watch this clip from a woke political conference in Canada. Watch the whole thing. Their convention chair, who identifies as non-binary, of course, literally stopped the entire conference because a young woman called them Madame. They halted proceedings to correct a pronoun. I mean, this is what Canada has to spend their time on, apparently. And it gets better. They have something called equity cards. Equity cards, guys. Literal race and gender cards to determine who gets to speak and in what order. I guess, if you check a couple boxes, you take priority over someone who probably knows maybe more about what they're talking about and isn't batshit crazy. So if you're a white male delegate, sorry guys, you go to the back of the line. Your voice matters less because of your skin color. It's not a skit. It's not South Park, although it totally could be. It's totally real. Check this out.
Thank you, Delegate. There's a point of privilege on microphone 1, then we'll go to microphone 3. Go ahead, Delegate.
Yes, hello. I was standing here with my gender equity card before you.
Okay, we got Patriot. Welcome. I don't know how long you're going to follow, but thanks for coming in. Just be respectful. Thank you.
Called on the previous speaker. That's my point of privilege that I would like to raise.
I will explain the speaking order, which is fixed, that I cannot amend, which is the pro-con rotation. You can move yourself up a line that you're standing in.
I am pro, and I was...
We went...
You went pro, con,
we went pro, and my plan was to go con. The speaker at con mic 3 also has a speaking card.
Yesterday, this card was used in an inappropriate manner. And while I understand in Ontario, we know this is equity, even if this was also used inappropriately in terms of gender. I want everyone to be mindful that these cards for individuals like myself who identify as a Black woman have no value outside of this space.
This is a real political party in Canada. Literal race cards and pronoun policing who are running the political conventions. They even call themselves the New Democratic Party, which, pretty much lines up with our current Democrat Party here in the United States. And while we're at it, across the pond in the United Kingdom, guys, you're allowed to fly the ISIS flag. You can fly the Hamas flag. You can fly the Pride flag. But which flag is not allowed? Well, apparently the British flag. You can't fly the flag of the country. You can fly the ISIS flag, Hamas, Pride, all the other crazy flags of the world, but you can't fly the British flag. Watch this clip from a recent demonstration in the UK. And you wonder why countries are falling apart. Why when you can't fly your own nation's flag in your own nation, but a terrorist organization's flag is totally acceptable, it's just fine. That tells you everything you need to know about Western civilization and where it's heading if we don't fight back. Now, here's one more for you. And this is a perfect example of how Democrats operate at every level of government. In Connecticut, Democrats created a meals and beverage tax, an extra 1% tax, and they stood up and swore to the people of Connecticut that the money would go back to cities and towns. However, since 2019, that tax has raised over $500 million, $500 million. How much went back to municipalities? Zero, guys. Not a dime, not a single penny.
So what do you guys think of Donald DJ there? First time I played his video. I think this is good. I gotta follow more of his videos. 35 minutes.
Single dollar was diverted into the state general fund. Check this out.
Brand new for you at 5:30. Connecticut's tourism budget has been slashed, but there are plans to revive it. Money will come from a meals tax, a tax that is supposed to help promote the
quickest way to improve
A lot of
vision.
good stuff again.
Your eye doctor can
Everything's
predict the day
coming
you'll
out.
die, but they'll never tell you. Here's why. This is the quickest way to improve
state, but is going somewhere else. Your chief political reporter, Susan Raff, is live in Middletown, where restaurants are fighting to get the money that was promised. Susan?
Sam, I think we can all agree that tourism is important, yet Connecticut spends far less than many other states. Now, this meals tax was supposed to go to help cities and towns, but somehow it ended up going somewhere else, straight to the state budget.
Big video here.
Abby McAllister was
Really
having
looking
lunch
back.
this Friday at Tate's in Middletown. She agrees tourism is vital.
If we're going to be successful, we need to promote the state, bring business in.
She may also be one of the few who knows you pay a meal tax when you go out to eat. Every check includes a 1% charge. That extra 1% tax has gone back to the general fund since 2019, generating over $500 million. But that wasn't the original intent. The money was supposed to go to the city or town where the tax was generated. The owner of Tate's came to Hartford to speak at a public hearing on a bill to bring some of that money back.
So the hospitality industry is a cornerstone of whatever culture you might be a part of. And I think that it's important to understand that we can contribute much more to our communities this way than just the meal or the donation.
It's money that is generated inside our local economies, but it's sent straight to the state's general fund. Our towns get nothing. Our tourism marketing budget gets nothing, and our small businesses get nothing.
Scott Dolch from the Connecticut Restaurant and Hospitality Association has been leading the fight to get back the money and do what he calls common sense. Give 50% to the towns, the other 50% to the state tourism budget. Democratic and Republican lawmakers agree on this one.
A lot of people think Connecticut tourism really is just Mystic, the casinos, or pizza. There's a lot more going on out there that we're not funding.
Abby McAllister says cities and towns need the money, and the return will be tenfold.
Give us back what was designated for tourism. We're not asking for something that wasn't already designated for tourism. We're just asking them to give back what they've taken.
Now, the Finance Committee will have to give approval in order for this to go to the full General Assembly. So the bottom line is some Republicans and Democrats agree that the money should go to where it was intended, but there are a lot of people who are wondering how it went so far for so long in the wrong direction. Your chief political reporter, Susan Ralph, Channel 3, live in Middletown.
Money stolen from you, consumers, stolen from the restaurants, stolen from the small businesses,
in the hallway.
stolen from the towns that were promised the money and dumped into the state's general slush fund. This is what Democrats do. They tax you. They promise you'll see the benefit, and then they take the money and spend it on whatever they want to. $500 million, guys, just gone. Nobody held accountable. No one held accountable for the lies since they told you specifically what it was going to be spent for. They promised. And it's just another example of massive Democrat orchestrated fraud. Joining me now, investigative reporter and Just the News founder, John Solomon. John, great to have you back.
Good to be with you, Don.
So you broke this incredible story about NSA intercepts showing Ukrainian officials basically discussing a plot to funnel back millions in American aid money back to the Biden 2024 campaign through, none other than USAID. I mean, really, I guess it shouldn't surprise us anymore, but it should shock us. Can you walk us through it and, what else we need to know?
Yeah, let's give everybody a little quick history lesson because the context of this is important. In 2016, we know that the Ukrainian embassy in the United States was advocating for Hillary Clinton's campaign. The ambassador here even wrote an op-ed doing so. In the period before that, they were enriching the Ukrainian gas company. Burisma was enriching Joe Biden's son, Hunter. So Ukrainians generally have had a leftward lurch in their support in the American political system, sometimes very overtly, like putting Hunter Biden on the board of Burisma, or their ambassador writing an op-ed saying they would prefer Hillary Clinton over Donald Trump in 2016. Then we get through the whole impeachment scandal. We're told, don't believe any of that Ukrainian liberal preference. Turns out it was all true. It wasn't a conspiracy theory. Hunter Biden and the Democratic Party were deeply entangled with the Ukrainian government, the Ukrainian businesses. And we lived through that. Joe Biden's in the White House. And in 2022 and early 23, his fundraising is lagging, even though he's the incumbent. He's got the problems with the Afghanistan withdrawal, questions about his mental acuity, enormous unpopularity, particularly when it comes to an open border. And so it's at that moment when NSA guys with headphones on are listening, and they intercept a series of conversations. Some of these are probably on email. And it's a senior government official in the Ukrainian government of President Zelensky talking about a plot that has been discussed with USAID workers, our foreign aid agency workers in Kiev, to give a $200-300 million clean energy grant to Ukraine. Now, Ukraine's in the middle of a war with Russia. The last thing they're going to be building is some clean energy project. They're trying to.
They're not building solar panels when you're getting bombed every day. It's probably not great use of a panel.
A complete ruse. And they even say so. Listen, the intercept suggests that this is not going to be a justified project, but you'll spend the money, and then by the time they discover it, it won't be recoverable. And the goal is take that money, then you're going to give it to non-governmental organizations, nonprofits. Then they're going to hire subcontractors with the USAID money. And then those subcontractors are going to hire American companies. And those American companies are then going to move the money into the coffers of Joe Biden's 2024 campaign and the Democratic National Committee. And they said they hope to arrange this in such a way that 90% of the money that originally came from you and I, taxpayers, through USAID to Ukraine would ultimately be laundered into the DNC and Joe Biden to help his 2024 campaign. That's what's been captured. Now, that was only recently discovered. That intercept or series of intercepts were not ever brought to the attention of anyone at the FBI or anyone during the Biden years. Tulsi Gabbard just recently found it. She's asked USAID to go look and see if they can find the contract. Did it happen? Was there some fraud involved? And so there's a beginning of an investigation to find out whether what was discussed ultimately transpired. And we should know answers in a couple of weeks.
I mean, do we trust USAID to do that? I mean, that's like asking OJ to find the murderer, right? I mean, it's like feels a little, again, I know they've cleaned out a lot of that stuff, but I imagine, once you get past that top level, these are all people that were likely in on it, and they're not going to probably incriminate themselves, or great point. I can't imagine them looking too hard to find the culprits here.
Yeah, well, the good news is that the Trump administration has gone right to the top. Russ Vought, the OMB director, very trusted by the president, has been asked to look at this himself. Don't rely downward. Now, what's interesting, OMB gathered, when it took over USAID, all records, so they couldn't be destroyed, so they couldn't be tampered with. Mm-hmm. So they have a preserved database of every email going back 2 decades that USAID workers ever did. Now, they're scouring through that now. I know they found some interesting emails in the last few days, I'm told, that may be referring to this plot. but it's at the very senior levels of government, not down at the deep state bureaucrats who would have a great motive in trying to hide this.
Yeah. So does this fall into like, you know, the bucket of like, you know, fraud that JD Vance would be looking into as well? Or is that, you know, because it's international?
Very well could be. You could have three things, right? You could have USAID confirm the allegation. Then two things would happen. You would send it over to JD Vance's task force to recover the money from those who stole it. And then you send it over to Kash Patel and Pam Bondi and launch a prosecution like we did in Minnesota after we discovered some of the 2024. In 2024, we discovered some of that Minnesota fraud. And then the U.S. attorney under the Trump administration got rolling. And now we got 90, 100 people indicted, 60 already convicted. So I think there would be a two-tier process. One, recover the money. That's JD Vance and his job to get the money back, punish the workers, stop it. But you could also.
I found a good video, okay, on DJ here. So we're already having a big show already. We're just stuck, not even halfway yet. 2 shows today.
Also have very significant.
Every blurry and low vision sufferer must try this daily ritual that is leaving doctors speechless. If you wear glasses.
Criminal prosecutions as well.
Yeah, so I guess the mechanism here really just fake infrastructure projects designed to be essentially disapproved.
Okay.
You know, after the money was already spent. You know, so they say, "Hey, we want it for this, we want it for that. It's never going to happen. We know that. Give us the money anyway." And then when it doesn't get approved, all of a sudden you have this money to be able to play with. You know, 90% going to the DNC. I presume the 10% is kicked back to Zelensky and his cronies. You know, over there. You know, not that they need the 10%. They've probably been stealing so much from, you know, the trillions we've probably spent over there. Maybe they don't even need the 10%, but I imagine, you know, some of it was there. But I mean,
sure,
this is sophisticated stuff.
It is.
You know, who on the American side, you know, was coordinating that? Do we know that yet? I mean, you know, how deep does this go? Because I can't imagine, you know, this isn't one guy with, you know, with an email. I mean, this has got to be a team of people. This is a, you know, multi-$100 million transaction through complicated processes, you know, and again, how do we trace that money?
Yeah, so what we do know is that the NSA identified the senior Ukrainian government officials who were having this conversation. And I believe they have some of their emails in. So we know who in Ukraine was involved. The intercepts don't mention the USAID workers by name. They just simply mention that they're working for USAID in Kiev. That's a small group of people. And that's why the calling of the USAID email should help people find that pretty quickly. Who was in touch with those government officials? Who was talking about a clean energy grant in the middle of a war with Russia? It should be easy to narrow down. And my understanding is they've made some progress just in the time since I broke the story last week. That's a good sign. You're right. It's very sophisticated. In fact, the NSA intercept report, which is a summary of the intercepts, said that this was designed to be so complicated, it would be hard to figure out after the fact, laundering it multiple times until you eventually break off the money and you send it to the DNC and Joe Biden. So it is, at the time this was going on, a very famous person was running USAID. The former UN ambassador was now at USAID, Samantha Power, someone very close to Obama, someone very close to Hillary Clinton, someone very close to Joe Biden. So at the top of USAID is a very political Biden, Clinton era, Obama era person. That doesn't mean she's involved yet, but certainly you'd be looking at that agency from the top down to see who knew what when.
Yeah, I mean, as I sort of just mentioned, you know, we've been covering the fraud everywhere. Minnesota, California, you know, rampant, and I'm sure they'll get into a lot of that. But, you know, now Ukraine. I mean, JD Vance has a fraud task force. Kash Patel is turbocharging the fraud probes. We have a new joint task force with the FBI and HSI in the One Big Beautiful bill. How can we, you know, bring all of this together to deliver, you know, actual indictments and recover funds? Because, you know, we see this stuff all the time. It's almost a never-ending amount of fraud and almost a never-ending amount of, you know, culprits. You know, yet, you know I do, and I'm sure all the people watching, you know, they want to see indictments. Now they got to understand there is a process. You know, maybe explain that a little bit, because if you break the process, you break that sort of, you know, chain a little bit. You know, it's a lot worse, because not only will nothing happen, you know, they'll weasel out of it and probably continue this stuff. But can you talk a little bit about that? Because, you know, again, I think people do want action. It seems the Democrats get action without following the rules. We won't get that. It'll get venue shopped to a judge who would throw it out in 2 seconds. So we have to play by a different fact set, unfortunately.
We got 20 minutes.
But how does all that work right now?
Well, I think one of the things that you're seeing is a little bit of innovation by the Trump Justice Department in where they pick venues. So, you know, if you go to D.C. and New York, you're not going to get a conviction. Traditionally, that's where most big government fraud cases have gone. However, if a single subcontractor is in another state, or if a single contractor or NGO is in another state, you're seeing this Trump Justice Department move cases to those states. That's how the grand conspiracy case is now down in Miami. Last week, you saw Bill Pulte, the Federal Housing Finance Administration Director and the head of Fannie Mac and Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae. He referred Letitia James a second time. She gets cleared in Northern Virginia the first time. He sends a second referral this time. He sends it to Florida and to Chicago because that's where the mortgage insurance companies or the house insurance companies were based. That's an innovative way of potentially tackling this and getting around some of the jury nullification issues that we've seen in D.C. and New York. There is a brand new assistant attorney general just for fraud. So there's a whole new division of the Justice Department dedicated to fraud. New resources, new mindset, new top-down management. This case, if it were to be proven, if you could find the grant and the money moving, would be tailor-made for that division. And then you bring it in the venue where the best, or the jurisdiction where the best opportunity is for conviction based on the evidence. And so those are things that they're looking at right now. There are 2 American companies that were mentioned as the ultimate destination where the money would go before it was disseminated. Those were redacted from the report because obviously you want to preserve the lead gen for the Justice Department and the FBI. But the intercepts clearly named the American companies that they thought ultimately would be disseminating the money to the DNC and to Joe Biden. So there is a lot of information in the raw NSA reports, and it seems to me that the Trump administration has hit the ground running now. And so I think J.D. Vance will be involved in recovering the money. The fraud team, the FBI, Kash Patel, is out there every day arresting bad guys. And pretty soon I wouldn't be surprised if Kash Patel is putting handcuffs or certainly booking John Brennan based on what we're hearing down in Florida. There are some people that went and got phone records of Susie Wiles. They could be arrested soon. So you're beginning to see machinery, which was very slow at the beginning because you had to get this evidence put together, now starting to get into targeted prosecutions, targeted arrests. And I think a lot of that's going to happen in the April-May timeframe. I think we'll see a bunch of significant arrests and indictments in the next 2 months.
You've mentioned Brennan. Are there others? You know, obviously he was a big one. I think he was one of the guys that lied before Congress and perjured himself. Yeah. And, not only does he not get punished for that, he gets, a job being a commentator talking about ethics on CNN. I mean, it's sort of, ironic, but it is typical in terms of, Democrat projection, accuse others of doing what you're doing yourself. They seem to do that a lot. Are there other big names that the people watching this show would know that perhaps weren't covered under the sort of, Joe Biden last minute blanket pardon for anyone who was doing his bidding?
Well, Comey got a subpoena just a couple of weeks ago. So the former FBI director, James Comey, got a subpoena. That is a sign that some of his work is an object or a concern of the grand jury down in Florida. So we're keeping an eye on it. I actually think if the grand jury decides that they're going to indict Brennan, and there was a very big action last week, the Senate and House transmitted official copies of the testimonies. You wouldn't need that unless you were about to indict someone. You could use the unofficial copies to introduce the grand jury. But if you ask for the official, it means your grand jury is thinking about doing something. I think after that, they're going to go down to people who may not be that famous, but who were the operators inside the FBI, creating and opening files. I mean, the other day I reported your dad was subjected to 4 consecutive code-named FBI investigations from the summer of 16 to January 25. He was under continuous investigation by the FBI, treating a man who was twice elected by the American people president as though he were a security threat, a counterintelligence threat. Who opened those cases? What agents created the predicate? I think there's a lot of activity right now looking at whether agents open cases against your dad and against his followers and his friends and his assistants on false pretenses. And so they may not be sexy names, but they were people who were at the heart of weaponization. I think that'll be the next round of indictments after a decision's made on John Brennan.
Yeah, because I imagine, I mean, you really have to get that going now because, you know, if the Democrats win midterms, you know, we're starting, you know, Russia to the 12th,
Yep.
you know, here we go
All
again.
over
Like,
again.
you know, we get it.
Yeah.
It's hard to believe, but you almost have to be playing the same battle because we have not historically been playing the same battle. And so there's nothing to dissuade them from just continuing with the nonsense.
There you are, Andy.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. Listen, they've already made clear they intend to be nonsensical. They're going
to be on twice today because there's a lot of stuff coming out. This is a video. I haven't watched Donald Jr. in a long time, so this is a good video. We got Billy will be next. She just came out with 20. You got to give me the report later on this morning. What happened?
they're going to double down.
All family pharmacy. Getting a prescription doesn't have to be such a hassle, and that's why I recommend all family pharmacy.
Oh.
They want to indict everybody again. They're talking about it every day, deplatforming them, ruining their businesses, suing them. That's what the Democrats have in store. And you're seeing just in the last few days a great example of that. So I have requested under the Freedom of Information Act some of the information about China's penetrations into our election system. One of those involves a Chinese operator named Christine Fang, who was deeply involved with Eric Swalwell. As my request is working its way through for potential release, the New York Times and the Washington Post, the two official news organizations of the deep state, are out there saying, oh, wouldn't it be terrible if information about Eric Swalwell came out? No, it actually would be good for the American public to know what China did with people like Swalwell, like Kathy Hochul.
Really? That's the best news I heard all year. Yeah, right. Lucy.
Like Dianne Feinstein, where we now know Chinese assets were inserted into the democratic machinery. But you're seeing the deep state already turning to all their friends, trying to create a sympathetic view about the release of what is official government information. It's crazy.
Just so we're clear with Swalwell, because I remember because he was in the room when, you know, the House Intelligence Committee subpoenaed me and I'm giving testimony, you know, for treason, you know, crime punishable by death. They're trying to throw me in jail for the rest of my life.
That's right.
I mean, he's sitting on the House Intelligence Committee while having an affair with a Chinese spy. And I mean, and I'm the bad guy somehow. It's
crazy, isn't it?
It's sort of shocking, but you know, that they can get away with it for that long.
Yeah, no, they're very good because they've got the legacy media in their back pocket. Now, the difference between 16 and 26 is that we have a much more robust media system that can get the story out and around and counter false stories much quicker than we could in, let's say, 19 when they made up the bogus Ukraine impeachment arguments, or certainly 16 where they made the man just elected president look like he was a Russian stooge when there wasn't an iota of evidence that that was true. I mean, we now know from John Durham.
Yeah,
No,
and they knew
it. They knew it from the beginning. They made it. They created it. They faked it. They knew it was fake because they faked it. It's just that amazing. So the good news is the amplification system, the countering system, the fact-based system, way more robust than it was. Now, getting people indicted is important because in these sort of conspiracy cases, you roll up, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to look for someone who wants to make a deal, who's about to get indicted and say, you know, I know something about X or Y. And so the mob and drug cartel notion of rolling up has to start now if we're going to get accountability before the 26 or 28 election.
John, I mean, it seems like a lot of your reporting from years ago is now perhaps more relevant than ever before. You know, back when we were first learning about the inner workings, you know, and corruption in Ukraine, you know, et cetera. Do you think there would be folks willing to talk and cooperate with an investigation now that may have not been able to or willing to then? Because, you know,
100%.
at least now, you know, they understand, you know, where things are. They understand how bad it was. And maybe they don't have the teeth that they had when the Democrats were in power and they controlled everything. And, if you did that, that was the end of your job, your family, your life. They'd throw you in jail for being a whistleblower, and looking into the fraud far more likely than they would actually go after the fraudsters. Because, we're talking, seismic levels of waste, fraud, corruption, and abuse at this point.
Yeah, you know what? It is very true. Since your dad got back into office, whistleblowers who were kept silent or just chose to keep silent for career preservation are coming out of the woodwork. Kash Patel has developed a whole group of them in the FBI. Some of them, the whistleblowers, are now leading the cases that they were blowing the whistle on, which is a really cool dynamic. They get to investigate what they knew was wrong all along. You see in Minnesota, all the state workers who've come forward saying, hey, Keith Ellison and Governor Walz, they knew and they turned a blind eye. They've come forward in a big way. In the intelligence community, the recent work I've done not only on Ukraine, but on China and the fact that China hacked into our voter registration data in 2020, and it wasn't told to the American people. We didn't know about it. There's a whistleblower there that's helping Tulsi Gabbard and John Radcliffe. And so there are some really courageous patriots who either were silenced or kept silent for preservation's sake, are now assisting these government investigations, and that's why they're speeding up in speed. It was a slow crawl at the beginning. Now it's an avalanche of evidence coming out daily.
What about the same from the Ukraine side? Are there people over there that are willing to jump in and step up and say, hey, yeah, this is nonsense and this is what's going on? I mean, what's the state of play in Kiev? Again, I think most Americans are fed up. I wonder if some of those people are willing to cooperate now.
My reporting indicates that Steve Witkoff, who's done a great job negotiating all across the world, including in Ukraine, recently was given some information from some Ukrainian government officials that could be very, very helpful to the last decade of understanding some of the corruption going on and the relationships between our two countries and some of the people who profited or created fraud or did other things, tried to create political influence through untoward means. So we understand that at least some information has been transmitted to people like Steve Witkoff. Those are really important people at that level. If they get the information, they know where to give it and how to get action. So a lot is going on. You see it in the Russia collusion case recently, some interviews of people that were long silent. All of a sudden, they're having their story told to the FBI, and then grand jury subpoenas follow. So I think the entire system, the entire democratic system, is vibrating. The system depended on three things: untoward money, illegal immigration, and hijacking the apportionment system. And then if you can get to that, then maybe registering non-citizens or other people, ballot box stuffing. People say there's no proof of ballot box stuffing. To the contrary, we had a race in California, in Connecticut, and one in New Jersey just in the last 2 years that had to be completely done over because Democrats stuffed the ballot box. We have new evidence that China was considering doing that, maybe in concert with some Democrats in 2020, stuff that Kash Patel put out. Those three pinnacles of election interference: corrupt money, illegal immigration, and sort of hijacking the apportionment system, and then ballot box stuffing. All three of those now are a high priority for this White House, for the intelligence community, the FBI, to get all the evidence out and to start indicting people. And, we've had a few non-citizens suddenly indicted. We were told non-citizens voting was a conspiracy theory. Not anymore. I could show you a whole bunch of cases. Recently, the Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights, Harmeet Dillon, who oversees voting rights, said that her early review of voter rolls has found tens of thousands of non-citizens who got into a position to vote. Not hundreds, tens of thousands. That is a wake-up call. And I think this administration, between now and November, will make significant improvements to the system by cracking down and punishing those who abused it in the past.
John, you mentioned Brennan, but what else should we be keeping our eyes on, in this coming spring and summer? Are there sort of, you mentioned the fraud in Connecticut elections, that's probably new for a lot of people. They don't even realize it. Again, we have other ways of getting the news, but I think the average American is still probably heavily reliant on mainstream media. The people who aren't junkies, who aren't going to go beyond, sort of the title of the essay. Oh wow, this month.
DJ should mention my channel. They go to my channel. Just joking.
must be accurate. It must be there, or it's just guilt by omission. They're just not going to include those kinds of stories. What are the other big ones we should be looking out for in spring and summer?
I suspect that the intelligence community has now identified which states had their election registration voter databases hacked by China in 2020. Now, 2 years ago, when Great Britain learned this happened, it was a national crisis. Months of scandal. People got fired, major security reforms for the election. I think when states start to get notified, we didn't tell you this, but 6 years ago, 5 years ago, your voter registration database was accessed by China. That's going to create a really significant aha moment in America that election integrity isn't some conservative talking point or some imaginary conspiracy theory. Yeah. It is very real. Our enemies are looking to hijack the ballot box, perhaps in concert with Democrats. And I think those notifications will be very, very powerful moments that even the mainstream media won't be able to ignore. Hey, if you're in a state and you find out your voter registration data is now in the hands of China, that's a big story no matter what the political aisle is. So I'd be watching for that in the next few weeks. Then I think Brennan, a decision to be made on Brennan, then some FBI people.
Here's how to legally steal gasoline from gas stations. This programmer got fired from his job at a German car manufacturer.
Who were involved in spying on the enemy. I mean, at the end of the day, what those 4 codename investigations were against your dad, which was Crossfire Hurricane, Round River, Plasmic Echo, and Arctic Frost, it was an effort to use the tools of the intelligence and law enforcement community to spy on your dad's campaign and the people supporting your dad's campaign for 10 consecutive years, from the summer of 2016 to January 2025, just before he raised his hand and took the oath of office. We need the American people to understand how pervasive that spying is, how much worse it was in Watergate, as some of our senators were saying last week, and get that out to the people with evidence that says, oh, I believe this. This isn't a tweet or a truth or someone's grievance. My God, we really did this. And I think those things are coming down the pike between now and June.
What do you think's required, John? Obviously, hey, we don't believe those things would happen under, our FBI now, but what's to prevent it from just, hey, Democrats win midterms. Obviously, they have power in Congress. Perhaps they win an election in 28 or 32.
Yeah.
What's to prevent this from ever happening again? Is there any real way to codify that now so that it can't happen again? How do you see that playing out? Because I think, that's a big deal. Dealing with the past and, having accountability, I think, is huge. But really preventing it from happening in the future is probably, a far bigger deal to the American people. It took what we've gone through over the last, decade to make the people aware that, what they believed about America is probably not actually accurate in terms of, what they thought was going to happen under the, quote, justice system, et cetera. Right. How do you stop it from ever happening again?
Well, I want to go to something Ronald Reagan and his team was fond of saying. At the end of the day, people are policy. And what the Obama administration did 14, 15 years ago was start embedding their people into positions where they could create abusive decisions, abusive tactics, abusive targeting. The first thing that has to happen, and it's happening in some places, other places not as much, is a replacement of the people and a replacement of the culture. You have to have people in the FBI that says, I'm going to resist the temptation to spy on the Democratic opposition or the Republican opposition because it's just wrong. We put a whole bunch of people in the Obama years who thought that was actually the prize of being in their position, not the bane of what they shouldn't be doing. So changing people out is important. That process is underway. At the FBI, it's extensive replacement. In the Justice Department, it's pretty extensive, though maybe not enough yet. In the intelligence community, I'm a little worried that we still have a lot of deep staters still in the same positions able to do that. Then you have to create penalty. Someone has to realize I'm going to jail for 10 or 20 years if I do this in the future because Joe Smo just went to jail for 10 or 20 years. That's a very big important. And then the third is, I think the reason there's a temporary renewal of the FISA standards is to watch some of these reforms that were put into place last year by your dad, see how they're working and make another set of reforms before your dad leaves office so that FISA search warrants and other things that were abused in this process have a better system to catch cheating before it's approved. Once a judge approves it, that baby has left the train has left the depot and the abuse is done. Can you catch it in real time as someone's making an abusive request? And there's some very smart things that are being done now that weren't done a year ago because of reforms that your dad and the intelligence community made, John Ratcliffe and others. One of them is, one of the ways that the FBI used to bamboozle judges is they would get one FISA warrant from one judge and maybe it didn't go well. So they wouldn't go back to that judge. They would go to another judge who knew nothing about the first FISA warrant, get them to approve the second one. Now the FISA warrants all have to go back to the same judge. So if a judge approved it, like, I thought you told me you were going to get this. Why didn't that happen? Now you've got somebody who's looking at the whole body saying, I'm not approving this because you didn't deliver what you want. Those are some of the reforms underway.
Well, that's a really big deal. John, thank you so much. John Solomon, everyone, check out him. Check out Just the News. Appreciate you being here as always, man.
Good to be with you, Don. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Thanks so much.
Okay. That was a really good video there. I'm glad I played it. So, Kay, can you explain to KJ about the morning show? Or wait till, I don't know, Carol. I guess we can wait till Carol gets in here and to tell KG about. His auntie said, I laughed when she said that. We're getting money this week. I laughed and cracked me up. Someone will explain it to you in chat, KG. All right, we got 20-minute Billy Bean coming up next.
Time in tech about 11 a.m. And I'd like to say thank you to Jonell Enterprises and to the Bomnar family in California for extra support for my channel. And some of the things we'll cover: President Trump covers the TSA, and the U.S. military preps to overcome Iran. And what's coming up in space weather? Let's get started. So we had, in the past 24 hours, we've had a 1.5x flare. That's going to give us today a strong geomagnetic storm, a G3 level. Typically, that would carry a KP index of 6 to 7, giving us an opportunity for auroras from the top northern part of the U.S. down to about mid-level. And we're gearing up for the Artemis flight that's supposed to take place about Wednesday evening. Supposedly, the U.S. is launching the Artemis rocket that's going to take 4 astronauts around the Earth and then a slingshot around the moon, allegedly to give us our first view of the dark side of the moon. So that's coming up. And
Okay, thanks, Kay. Yeah, sorry, KG. Hopefully somebody in chat will know who we're talking about. I thought Auntie would still be in here. Thanks, Kay.
And we have this. We have some intel coming in, U.S. intel, that in the past 24 hours, Iran has hit a desalination plant in the Middle East. There are not many natural sources for water, for fresh water. And so many of the Middle Eastern countries depend on desalination plants. They desalt ocean water to make it drinkable, potable for humans. So we're hearing Iran hit a desalination plant in Kuwait, and that we're also hearing information coming out from Kuwait They have had a representative, a consultant to the UN for many years, a Mr. Saba. In the past 24 hours, he abruptly resigned, and he is putting out that the UN has a secret plot to launch a nuke on Iran and then blame the US and Israel. So we've known for a long time we can't trust the UN. So we say to President Trump, not only get us out of NATO, but get us out of the UN. So that's going on. And we have this. We have that President Trump is now covering paychecks for the TSA. We saw the commie Dems leaving for their 2-week Easter vacation, leaving mothers and fathers working for the TSA, having to decide between, do I pay rent or make the car payment, or do I feed my kids? But the commie Dems, of course, are intent on destroying America. So President Trump is using his executive order power to direct the Department of Homeland Security. TSA is a department of the Department of Homeland Security, to direct the new Director of Homeland Security, Mullen, to find ways around that to actually transfer money from one account to another so that the TSA employees can be paid. And we understand many of them began to see yesterday direct deposits to their accounts. So way to go, President Trump. Make America great again, and also safeguard the rights and privileges of federal employees to be paid their paychecks and to keep our airports safe. And yes, we have that Artemis rocket to be taking off Wednesday evening from Florida. So that's going on. It's going to be exciting. And we have this from U.S. Intel that yes. So when President Trump was taking off Sunday in Air Force One from Palm Beach, Florida, there were one or more suspicious drones that invaded the airspace. And the fighter jets that protect President Trump and Air Force One took them out. But the FBI and Secret Service and FAA are doing further investigations. The Air Force One had to come to a ground stop for at least 40 minutes until everything was sorted out. So, of course, President Trump continued and landed safely in Washington, D.C. We have this from New York Prepper. Yeah, so Iran did hit a U.S. military base in Saudi Arabia and injured 15 U.S. military, damaged 5 refuelers, and seriously damaged a U.S. military AWACS Intel plane. That happened a few days ago. We have what's going in the U.S. military since this conflict began February 28, have made 11,000 target hits inside Iran. They have taken out 150 Iranian Navy ships. Also from U.S. Intel today, we had taking off from Maine, going to the Middle East, multiple U.S. military planes, and going, we're hearing going to Lakenheath in the UK. So that's going on. And we have this from Tusi TV. Yeah, the U.S. continues to hit Iranian manufacturing plants and destroy them. From BP Earthwatch, he retelevised the Pentagon briefing from this morning, where we heard speak Secretary Hegseth and General Kane in charge of the Joint Chiefs. That currently operating against Iran is a joint military power between the U.S. and Israel of 3.8 million. And we have this, that Iran has hit, Iran's ability to launch missiles and drones has been severely degraded, as well as their logistical supply chain and their manufacturing facilities for missiles and drones. Iran is being decimated. And we have this, also their air defense system has been severely degraded. So that's going on. And we have this. We have China. China, over the weekend, put out a fake bomb threat for a Chinese artistic group seeking to perform in Toronto, Canada. China often tries to thwart efforts by Chinese cultural groups who are independent of China. It's Chinese nationals outside China living in the U.S. or living in Canada or other countries who are seeking to put on performances demonstrating Chinese culture. China doesn't like that, so they put out a fake bomb threat for a Shenyang group to perform recently over the weekend in Toronto. So that had to be canceled. So China seeks to not only historically inside China destroy Chinese culture, but they seek to take down groups outside China doing the same. So that's going on. And we have this, that Iran is not giving safe passage to Chinese ships through the Strait of Hormuz. So it appears that the relationship between China and Iran is eroding. Can it be that Iran discovered, to its horror, that the Chinese air defense and other weapons China had sold to Iran did not work? So that's going on. And we have the director of energy in Iran saying that the U.S. military had hit a power plant inside Iran. That happened over the weekend. But what's coming forth from the U.S. military is that the U.S. and Israel hit a military target near Tehran, that's the capital city of Iran. And in that hit on a military target, damage was done to a nearby power plant that took the lights out in Tehran. I believe that was Sunday. I believe they have them back up today, Tuesday. And we have this, that happened March 29, that hit on a military target that temporarily took down an Iranian power plant near Tehran. So that's going on. And we have this. Yeah, Iran power is down March 29, about 9 p.m. That came from U.S. intel. The Parchin Iranian base was hit, and it was near a power plant in Karachi. So I believe 2 locations were hit, and they were both near power plants, and one was near Tehran and one near Karachi. And assassinations or taking down of IRGC leaders continues. And another leader of the IRGC Besiege Group. The Besiege Group is the one that machine guns down Iranian citizens. Now they have been so degraded that now Iran is using 12 teenagers as young as 12 years old, not a teen, to carry machine guns in the streets to shoot down Iranian citizens. What could go wrong there? And we have this in southeast Tehran. There was a significant strike on IRGC. So we have this, that Iran has had a power outage that happened over the weekend in northern Iran. And we have this, that the U.S. military is shoring up U.S. defenses in Saudi Arabia. We saw the recent hit by Iran on Saudi Arabia. And we have this from Sun Tzu, Art of War. Make your enemy think that you are weak. And we're seeing that being put forth by various U.S. military propaganda outlets, including Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, and Joe Kent. And recall, I put out that information recently from Larry Taylor. He had a vision from God that our U.S.-Israel joint strike on Iran put the world on a new and better timeline, one that shortens the return for our Messiah figure, Jesus Christ. So my interpretation of this is that God is communicating our hits on Iran by the U.S. and Israel is blessed by God. And we have this. So the UK is whining. Our oil supply is going down. And President Trump put out on his Truth Social, well, UK, why don't you send your troops out there to the Strait of Hormuz and take your oil? And we know in the beginning, the UK said to the U.S. military, no, you can't use our bases to hit Iran, from Fairford and Diego Garcia. And then we saw Iran trying to hit the UK base located in Cyprus. So it's clear Keir Starmer is a traitor, not only to the U.S., but to the UK. So way to go, President Trump, to the UK. You're whining about your supply of oil. Well, why don't you use UK, your military, to go out to the Strait of Hormuz and take your oil? And for me, I have this to say to Keir Starmer, shut up. So this concludes my update.
Hey, there's your favorite
I love
word.
You, and I'll see you soon.
She said it at the end. Okay, wow, we're getting a lot of good stuff out today. I knew there was a lot of good stuff coming out. We're just getting started. We got another big show later on. So a lot of good things are happening. They say tomorrow's the first of the year. So we'll see. All right, we got a photo I want to share real quick before we get to the next two. Benny videos. So here's the one photo with the doors, the names on the doors. Everyone, April. Okay, the next two are mini videos. 3-hour mark, hour to go. Oh wait, here's one I want to share real quick. Shoot. Remember what Donald Jr. said? Pathetic REP Swellwell accused of breaking house rules by hitting up causes for cash. That's interesting. Oh, we got so much stuff to get out. Let's get the first Benny video in.
Good morning. As you guys know, our channel was one of the first to travel to the new site at the Obama Presidential Library, and my initial takeaway was this.
What the fuck is this piece of shit?
And that's the entire internet's take. The Obama Presidential Library looks literally
What about the Obama Presidential Library? Not only does it look like a jail or a giant trash can, but it's also in just the classiest neighborhood where you have random abandoned boats that are in such poor disrepair that there are literal plants growing inside of them. Look, it's green like Obama's presidency.
This is such a trashy neighborhood. It was such a piece of garbage. There's also garbage all over the president. Look at this. This is the Obama Presidential Library location. The graffiti, the lights are broken. There's filth and trash all over the streets. And of course, the Obama Library looks exactly like a trash can. So it's just perfect. And the contrast couldn't be more stark between President Obama and Donald Trump. Donald Trump, his son, who's in charge of his real estate empire, Eric Trump, dropped the first renderings of the new Trump Presidential Library last night in the dark of night, hit like a bomb on the internet. And you could see that President Trump is building a literal skyscraper. It looks like the Freedom Tower in New York City. It kind of looks like what Donald Trump wanted to build after the World Trade Center. In fact, you can see sort of the old renderings of what Trump wanted. You can see the American flag maxing. It's clear that Donald Trump's going to move his office into this building after his presidency because it has massive office space, event space, huge event space in downtown Miami. Speaking of huge, look at the size of the building. If you can fit this Boeing 787 in the lobby, the Air Force One replica, I think this is going to be the literal Air Force One plane pushed into the lobby. Perhaps you could tour it. You got F-16s, you got Apache helicopters, you got the golden staircase, which I always thought was a nice little touch there. The golden statue of Donald Trump in the auditorium. And this part's wild. So you have the actual colonnade at the White House and then the White House ballroom. So they're going to have replicas of the White House ballroom and replicas of the Oval Office. Yo, okay. Now you can sort of see the vision, and you can also see the contrast between the two men and their vision for America. And whatever you think, my favorite thing is the golden escalator. Without a doubt, my favorite single architectural little flourish here is the golden escalator. Donald Trump is thinking big. He's thinking carving up American skylines once again, making a statement about America and our future. People are really enjoying, obviously, some of the renderings. People are making fun of them, but most people are actually just making fun of Barack Obama. The reason they're making fun of Barack Obama is because the differences between the two are really, utterly remarkable. Look at this. Quite a spectacular contrast. Obama library mogged. Didn't know that was a thing. People are ruthlessly comparing President Trump's library to Barack Obama's library, saying the latter looks like a literal trash can. I'd imagine Hussein's having a few regrets about hiring those DEI architects about now. Yet the difference here is, I mean, pretty unbelievable.
This cleaner is insane. It removes baked-on oven grease, black mold, and years of...
Again, like, what do they say? What does this say about the man? What does it say about you as a person? You know, one building is a building that's obviously going to be, you know, you're taking advantage of all of the sights, all of the views, all of the perspective. It's glass, it's steel, it's ornate, it's a place you'd want to hang out and throw a party. The other one looks like an AT-AT, which could be cool if it was in the right context, but it's not. This makes Obama's library look infinitely worse. Yes, imagine what you could do. You could just do things. A Gavin Newsom press office account crashing out. The gold statue in Trump's library looks awfully familiar to a few others from around the world. Look, it's other gold statues. Gold statues are bad. Okay. Well, they put George Floyd in a golden casket. This is the party that puts George Floyd in a golden casket. So, like, STFU, right? This thing, oh, holy F, Obama, blown the F out. That's right. Everyone's comparing this to Obama's. Class versus trash. I'm telling you, man, I've been to the Obama library a couple times. They haven't opened it yet, but like, I've been to it a couple times. I've like stood outside of it. It really does look like pure garbage. I mean, it just looks terrible. Look, see how you can read the Trump lettering there? Notice how you can't read the actual lettering in the Obama library? Infinitely better than Obama's disgusting monstrosity of a library, LMFAO. Look at this, the differences. Everyone's comparing Trump's newly unveiled library to the Obama trash can. The comparison isn't even close. What an embarrassment for Hussein. Stunning and unmatched. Oof. Compare the designs of the Trump presidential library with Obama's worldviews on display. That's exactly right. It is. That's the point here, isn't it? Is the difference in worldview. This is, by the way, if you study architecture or if you're even remotely interested, this is brutalist architecture. It is meant to be ugly. This design is meant to be ugly. It's meant to show the power and the weight of the state. It is intended not to lift you up, but to oppress you. This is the design. It is Soviet in nature. It is a class of architecture that is designed to crush the human spirit, not uplift it. This design is meant to uplift the human spirit, sort of in the sort of Gothic revolution of churches and church spires reaching up beyond the clouds. And then the great American skyscraper added to it. And so it's uplifting, right? Everything from the red, white, and blue tower antenna down to the actual like, glass facade is meant to show you something, right? Meant to like demonstrate how good things could be. This is meant to, I don't know, confuse. Look at this. How are you supposed to read this? What is this? Hieroglyphics? Yeah, Trump presidential library, Obama presidential library, giant trash can. Yes, that's fine. We've been to the Obama library site. It is complete and total garbage. It's complete and total trash. I asked people in Chicago, I said, what is this presidential library? What does it remind you of? These are the people from Chicago. Predominantly black people from the south side of Chicago said it looks like a garbage can, a rock, a block of marble, a TARDIS, a mountain, an ATC tower, a mausoleum, and a jail. Like, it's pretty racist, actually. Kind of looks like a jail, says this lady. Is that like Obama? Is that racist? Is that racist? First black president making a jail for his library. Is that really what you want to inspire the kids? They can come to jail with you. By the way, ABC News is paying for part of this library, along with a ton of other news sites. ABC agreed to give $15 million to President Trump's presidential library. All of these defamation suits go straight to the library. So there's going to be like the fake news wing, which is going to be hilarious. I asked Eric Trump actually about this, and he confirmed the fake news wing of the new presidential library. Here we go. Can I make a humble suggestion? It's totally out of bounds for me because I don't have a background in this, but can I make a humble suggestion from the audience? Because I know the audience wants this. Corporate media has paid you close to $100 million in settlements. Much of that goes towards the presidential library. So please, for the love of God, make the fake news wing of the library sponsored by ABC News and CBS and 60 Minutes, and put their logos right up there and just show everyone who paid for the fake news wing of the library.
By the way, I hadn't thought of that, but that's beautiful. We could do a floor dedicated to, and what we'll do is we'll just roll the 60-minute clip over and over of how they doctored Kamala's interview. And we can roll Charlottesville over and over and over of how they just cut out this little segment and forgot, 3 words at the end of the sentence. And yeah, I actually think that'd be a great exhibit about how dishonest these people are and how they will lie, cheat, and steal. We can probably put the Stephanopoulos interview in there with JD, with JD from 2 days ago. I mean, that would be a great one. And we can remind people who all of these people are. In fact, that Stephanopoulos literally ran the Clinton war room, but now they have to fairly moderate debates. We could certainly put 60 Minutes on there as well when Leslie Stahl said, hey, they did not spy on Donald Trump's campaign, even though they were clearly spying on Donald Trump's campaign. Hey, there's a lot of fodder out there. Believe me, I will make, in honor of Benny Johnson, and because I think it's a phenomenal freaking idea that I'm really upset that I didn't think about myself, I will do an entire floor dedicated to the fake news, and I'll have a little trademark in your honor, Benny. That's a wonderful idea, and I promise I will accomplish that for you. Make no mistake, I will accomplish that for you.
This is the time for cheers. This is the time for cheers, Klein. Yes, thank you. This is the time for cheers. Thank you. Thank you. That has made my week.
And by the way, there's an area in there for Charlie as well, because you better believe he's a hell of a part of this journey, and he certainly needs to be honored in that building.
Wow. The fake news wing, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first.
Okay, the first Benny video. Moving on. Second. Oh, wait, I got a photo. I got to read something to you guys. Hold on. Here's old Pelosi here saying negative things to us. That Pelosi says Trump and Republicans may hack into the voting machines to rig the vote count in 2026 midterm. Oh boy. Got a second video.
Nobody wants justice for Charlie Kirk more than me. I emceed the man's wedding, worked with him for 10 years, considered him a brother, and I've done everything that I possibly can to uphold his legacy. It is a legacy of truth. It is why it is such an abomination to see so many people lie on the man's name. That's pissed me off, and I've broken publicly about it, given speeches about it. And here is a document that was filed in the Utah District Court, the Charlie Kirk case, that is causing a lot of headlines. There are 2 major headlines that have popped off from this document. One is 100% true, and the other was 100% false. I want to talk about both of them. Tyler Robinson's parents and trans boyfriend will testify for the prosecution in Charlie Kirk's murder. That's what this document shows. That the parents who turned him in are going to say, my son did it, confess to it, that this is his rifle, that this is what he did that day. The trans twink boyfriend, Lance Twiggs,
the transgender boyfriend, will also be testifying, most likely because he destroyed evidence, is potentially could get charged unless he cooperates with the feds. Not sure how much I'm going to trust the testimony, but I guess we'll see, and we'll have to see. But the prosecution is trying to delay this as much as possible. Obviously, this is a tactic. The farther you can get this out of the headlines, the farther and farther away you can get this beyond somebody having strong feelings or remembering that horrifying day on September 10th, then perhaps they could get a better trial for their client. And so this is a common tactic. They want to delay. And that's what this document is doing, because it seems now that the prosecution has an insurmountable and overwhelming amount of evidence. And this headline hit the internet yesterday. Bullet used to kill Charlie Kirk does not match the rifle. Allegedly used by the suspect, Tyler Robinson, new court filing claims. Bullet used to kill Charlie does not match rifle. So what this headline alleges is that there were different guns that were used. A different gun killed Charlie Kirk, and therefore there's a grand conspiracy, and who knows who did it. But it definitely was. The feds are completely lying to you. They're in on the cover-up, Egyptian planes, and so on. And it's all because of whatever, Iran. This is what the allegation of this headline says. And of course, the internet went and went completely ballistic on this headline. Ooh boy, pull your tinfoil hats out of the drawers. Bullet used to kill Charlie Kirk does not match the rifle. This seems like a huge deal. Like if the bullet doesn't match the rifle, this looks like a Fed slop narrative falling apart. If the bullet doesn't match the rifle, then obviously there is a massive conspiracy here. And this demands that all of us now, like whatever, so, like storm the FBI, to, get all the evidence. But it's a complete and total lie, this headline. And just a basic understanding of ballistics would show you that. Okay, so let's go to the actual quote. Because if you understood what the underlying ATF document says about the ballistic, it says something quite normal, and any gun owner would tell you this. The underlying motion discussed, 4th-page ATF report on the comparison of a bullet jacket fragment recovered during an autopsy of Charlie Kirk and the rifle recovered by law enforcement. The result of the comparison was inconclusive. It doesn't say it doesn't match. It says it's literally inconclusive. So the defense is effectively arguing that they need a chance to interview the ATF agent. Well, what is the ATF agent going to say? And by the way, I would be totally in favor of the interview of the ATF agent and to see all of the available evidence here. I think it's critical that we see all the available evidence immediately, as much as we possibly can. They should leak the evidence right now. A 30-06, which is the grain of bullet, hit Charlie Kirk in the neck, is known for fragmentation. The fragmented bullets often explode and shatter in real-world scenarios when they hit bone, when they impact bone, causing breakup and energy dump. Rapidly expanding, fragmenting. This is common. And this obviously, when the bullet splits, hitting bone like spine, ribs, and clavicles, causes the jacket separation and shattering, even with tougher bullets. The high velocity means that it will shatter even more, and that you get the kind of wounds that, of course, we all horrifically saw. I mean, hopefully you didn't see it, but whatever. A lot of people saw the video on Charlie. These expand rapidly on impact, soft tissue often shedding lead core fragments. While the jacket may separate, this dumps energy quickly, larger wound channels. It reduces penetration. It even says here in the write-up that there's a real-world debate about this with Charlie Kirk. There's much discussion about the Charlie Kirk bullet fragments, that it was not a whole intact bullet recovered from the neck and chest area, where they recovered fragments, but no exit wound. Critics questions how a powerful 30-06 could fail to exit. But because of the fragmentation that is common with this ammo, the impact of the bone causing the breakup and the energy dump, and the deflection and ricocheting throughout the body, as you can see in the footage, Ballistic tests and hunter anecdotes show this. There's very plausible with certain loads, bonded bullets are more likely to exit, but that a 30-06 can produce massive temporary cavities with fragmentation, and the fragmentation stays inside of the actual, in a case like for hunters right here, right? For the hunters, the bullet actually stays within the animal. This is something, reduced penetration depths, no large exit wound is possible. The bullet breaks up entirely, especially after hitting dense bone. This leads to an energy being deposited internally. Doctors complain about this. So it's something normal, and this is a completely erroneous headline. They don't say it doesn't match. They say that it is inconclusive because the bullet fragmented, which is normal for a 30-06. Okay? But anyway, so when you see these headlines across the internet, I just want you to be careful, right? Bullet used to kill Charlie Kirk does not match the rifle. That's not what the report says. If the report said that, I think that would be like something very important. This is what the headline says, not the actual report. Don't fall for clickbait bullshit. Bullet fragmented. We know this all along. With soft point rounds 30-06, it almost never is able to be matched because they are designed to expand and fragment. This is the actual quote, right? It says the results of the comparison is inconclusive, not that the gun doesn't match. But everybody's running with this, obviously, without actually looking into it, which is completely critical. It's not the same thing as saying the bullet doesn't match the gun. It's a small bullet fragment in bad condition. Stop it to everyone. It doesn't say that. Bullet used to kill Charlie does not match the rifle. This is the defense claim in motion, not the final court ruling. Conclusive proof. Ballistics matching isn't always possible. What they're saying, and here's the community note, the ATF ballistics test on Charlie Kirk's autopsy was inconclusive compared to the suspect's rifle due to the fragmentation. It did not determine that a match or non-match, the post misstates, did not match. Yeah. Gun not being able to match means the bullet was traced back to the gun, wasn't the suspect's gun. Unable to match the gun means the bullet was so fragmented that they were unable to match the bullet to a specific weapon, including, it's very two different things. Yeah. So everyone's who knows a little bit about ballistics and firearms is calling this clickbait and trash, completely discrediting. Surprised that, honestly, this headline's lasted so long. Large accounts are sharing this with WTF, what's going on. That does not show that the bullet was not fired from the gun. It shows the bullet was too fragmented to confidently link it to any gun. This is not uncommon and does not mean the bullet didn't come from Robinson's gun. The defense attorneys are going to try and spin this as evidence that Robinson is innocent. This is what they're doing. So they're like playing a game here. It's important to remember the parents and the boyfriend, the transgender boyfriend, are testifying against Tyler Robinson in the trial. Okay. There's been some other news, right? You'll see that the sheriff who arranged for Charlie Kirk's assassin to turn himself in has suddenly resigned. I don't know what that's about. I don't know. That's also a little piece of news that's out this morning. I'm not sure. I was in Utah recently, and I actually spoke with the guy who was there on duty when Tyler Robinson turned himself in. He said Tyler Robinson confessed to the murder. He was there with his dad. That's what he said. It wasn't exactly this guy. It was a different guy, a different sheriff. But anyway, Charlie stood for truth. Make sure that you are locked into the truth. It is critical to get justice for Charlie. It is critical to release all of the available information. It's critical to get justice for his family. And the way that you do that is full transparency and releasing everything. Okay? And that's what we advocate for 100% on this show and on this channel. Okay? And the faster they get this trial on, and the faster that we're able to hear all of the testimony and see all the footage, the better for the country and the nation.
So now they're saying the wrong bullet. So another change of the news on that. 2 more 15-minute videos, you guys, and I'll be back at 5. One Nick left, and one what was other? Oh, the military video. 18 minutes.
And failed. The US something so massive to Iran that it will go down in history. The 10,000th target has just been hit, and Iran has practically nothing left standing. On March 25th, US Central Command, or CENTCOM commander, Admiral Brad Cooper, delivered his newest breakdown of everything the US has achieved during Operation Epic Fury so far. The headline was also one of the first things out of Cooper's mouth as he proclaimed, "We're in the 4th week of the campaign and remain on plan, or ahead of plan, in achieving very clear military objectives for eliminating Iran's ability to project power in meaningful ways outside its borders," Cooper began. He then delivered the number, stating, "US forces have struck more than 10,000 military targets. In fact, we hit the 10,000th Iranian target just hours ago." Now, Cooper went on to explain that 10,000 is America's number. When you add Israel and its airstrikes into the mix, several thousand more targets have been hit. Many thousands more, in fact. On March 13th, the Wall Street Journal reported that US Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, had claimed that the US and Israel had combined to strike 15,000 targets, which was over 1,000 targets per day at the time of the statement. The sheer scale and ferocity of Operation Epic Fury and Operation Roaring Lion have wound down somewhat since that announcement, likely due to Iran having fewer military targets to strike. But given that 15,000 was the joint number before Cooper made his statements, it's not inconceivable to believe that the US and Israel have combined to hit somewhere close to 20,000 targets since February 28th. But even taken alone, 10,000 targets struck by the US is massive news. And to clarify, these are 10,000 targets, not 10,000 munitions fired. Those targets will be varied from the massive, such as Iran's underground military and nuclear bunkers, to comparatively small targets, such as drones. Each is an individual weapon or military node that has gone down, with the largest targets likely to have been struck with multiple munitions, perhaps even repeatedly over days to take them out of commission. And what we're seeing here is a level of aerial dominance that hasn't been achieved in any other modern war. America's layered campaign, which began with strikes conducted by stealthy airframes, such as the B-2 Spirit and F-35, before evolving to incorporate airframes as old as the B-52 and A-10, has shown us that the US can operate with impunity in Iran's skies. Now, that may not mean that Operation Epic Fury is coming to a close. What comes next could change everything all over again, and will catch everyone off guard if the US follows up with its threats. But for now, it's enough to know that so much of Iran's military infrastructure has been obliterated as the US plots a course for its next move. And according to several in the US, Iran is now desperate to achieve some sort of end to Operation Epic Fury. US President Donald Trump claims that Iran is begging to reach a deal, and the US has responded by delivering a 15-point plan that could make that deal happen. Iran has responded to these claims, stating that the US and Iran aren't talking, and the US is negotiating with itself. Now, the truth may lie somewhere in the middle, as it seems unlikely that Iran isn't open to any sort of talks, but it is perhaps not as desperate as Trump claims it to be. Now, Cooper has also said in his piece that the combination of US and Israeli air power proves that the two countries are stronger together. He also outlines the extent of the damage done to Iran's military infrastructure, stating, "Our precision strikes have overwhelmed Iranian air defenses, and our combat flights over Iran are having tangible effects." Now, let's get into those tangible effects with a roll call of what the US has achieved so far in Operation Epic Fury. 10,000 strikes completed is an impressive enough number on its own, but it doesn't mean much without the context of what those strikes have achieved. And with that context, the reaction goes from, "Wow, that's a lot of strikes," to "How on earth is Iran's regime still standing after all of this?" Well, we'll start with Iran's missiles. Now, Operation Epic Fury and Operation Roaring Lion have had a clear focus on Iran's missile launch sites, which are key to Iran's main approach of threatening its Gulf neighbors with ballistic missile strikes for as long as the US continues its attack. We have some numbers covering how many of these launches have gone down. The Israel Defense Force, or IDF, claimed on March 15th that about 70% of Iran's missile launches have been destroyed so far, which puts a massive dent not only in Iran's ballistic missile strategy, but also in its ability to launch cruise and anti-ship missiles and US Navy warships and merchant vessels. Now, the Wall Street Journal, in its own report on Israel's claim, provides a more concrete number, as it says that Israel claims that Iran has lost 330 of its 470 mobile missile launch platforms. Now, that works out to about 70%, as the IDF claims. More questions can be asked, such as how Israel and the US know precisely how many of these mobile missile launchers there are when Iran tries to keep them underground. There's still no denying that the figure is impressive. And satellite photographs published by the Washington Post highlight this. The first 4 weeks of Operation Epic Fury have seen the US and Israel utterly destroy 29 of Iran's ballistic missile launch sites, each of which would have been home to dozens of launchers. And above-ground facilities have been taken out of commission, underground facilities have been targeted with bunker-busting bombs, and it has all been done to degrade one of the most significant threats that Iran poses to the US, Israel, and their Gulf allies. We've seen the impact of this portion of the 10,000 strikes emerge very quickly. Cooper says as much himself, as he points out that Iran's missile and drone launchers are down by more than 90% since the beginning of the war, which is a sign that whatever missile saturation strategy that Iran had prepared hasn't gone to plan. Of course, this doesn't mean that Iranian missiles aren't being fired. 70% of launchers downed still leaves 30% that can fire, and that amounts to about 140 mobile launchers that the US still needs to find and destroy before Iran's missiles become a non-factor. There are also the missiles themselves. While missiles become useless without launchers, which is what has led the US down the strategic route it is now taking, you could argue that the US and Israel haven't quite done enough about Iran's missiles, even after 10,000 plus strikes. According to The Guardian, US intelligence suggests that about a third of Iran's missile stockpiles are confirmed to have been destroyed, and another third of the stockpile seems likely to have been damaged, buried, or otherwise made unusable due to America's attacks on Iran's underground tunnels and bunkers. There have also been 1,400 confirmed missile launches by Iran since the beginning of Operation Epic Fury. And though most of these would have occurred at the beginning of the war, this tells us that Iran is still a missile threat, though one that has been severely downgraded compared to what it was before. But this is where things start to shift on the Iranian missile front. It's not just launchers and stockpiles that have been taken out of commission in the 10,000 strikes. The US has also taken aim at Iran's missile and naval production facilities, as Cooper explains. Iran has large-scale manufacturing capacities to not only build naval vessels, missiles, and attack drones, but also to advance and proliferate these technologies to regional and global bad actors, Cooper explains. He adds, "Today we've damaged over 2/3 of Iran's missile, drone, and naval production facilities and shipyards," before he delivers the chilling warning that the US isn't done with all of this yet. The elimination of Iran's wider military manufacturing apparatus is also on the agenda, Cooper proclaims. Now, this is bad news for Iran, because it means that what's left of its ballistic missile strategy is now on a time limit. As more launchers and production facilities go down, every Iranian missile launch that follows is made using a...
If you own a foam roller, a back wheel, or any stretching device for your back pain, I need you to hear this. Stretching will never fix your back. It might feel good in the moment. I'm not saying it doesn't, but it's not something
stockpile that can't be replenished. This isn't just about taking out what Iran has. The US is focusing on what Iran might try to build, which means it's crippling the regime's missile-focused doctrine for the long term. Now, we mentioned that the 10,000 strikes against Iran have included attacks on Iran's shipbuilding and naval production facilities. There's a lot more to cover on the naval front. But before we dive deeper into that, this is a quick reminder that you're watching The Military Show. There's a lot more where this comes from, so hit subscribe if you're getting value from the insight that our channel offers. Beyond naval production facilities, the US has also focused on taking out as much of Iran's existing seafaring capacity as it possibly can. We see a similar strategy as the one taken with Iran's missiles, which is to destroy what already exists and then follow up by taking out the facilities that could build more. Now, on the already exists, or should we say used to exist front, the Times of Israel reports that the US has sunk 92% of the Iranian Navy's large vessels. Now, this percentage likely accounts for frigates, submarines, and Iran's makeshift aircraft carriers, and perhaps doesn't cover the fast attack boats Iran has been using to wreak havoc in the Strait of Hormuz. Still, 92% of Iran's large vessels tells us that the regime's naval might, at least on the pure power projection front, has been shattered. Pentagon figures put the total number at 130 vessels down by March 26th, though it's unclear how many of these are the large ships already mentioned and how many account for fast boats and other Iranian vessels, such as its Ghadir-class midget submarines. We do know that the 130 figure includes 40 mine layers and 11 submarines, and that Iran has been using its fast boats that lay mines in the Strait of Hormuz. America's approach right now seems to be that anything that sails for Iran is a fair target. As with the missiles, it's not accurate to say that Iran's navy no longer presents a threat. With missiles, Iran has fallen back to a strategy where it conducts small and precise launches, which at least allows it to maintain some sort of threat. When it comes to the naval part of the battle, Iran was never truly going to be able to contend with the aircraft carriers and associated warships that the US brought to the Persian Gulf region. Don't get us wrong, the regime absolutely did not want to lose so many of its warships and submarines. Still, the goal for Iran was always to leverage an asymmetric naval blockade strategy in the Strait of Hormuz, and that's a problem with which the US still has to contend. Now, Radio Free Europe, or Radio Liberty, pointed that out in a March 12th piece, where it noted that Iran's conventional navy was practically gone. But the threat to the Strait of Hormuz wasn't. Not a lot has changed at the end of March. Iran's fast boats and midget submarines are still attacking merchant ships in that strait, as are its drones and anti-ship missiles. It's not about volume here. Iran doesn't need to attack every ship that attempts to move through a waterway that is responsible for the flow of 20% of the world's oil. Attacks every so often are enough to make journeys so risky that insurers won't pay out and ship captains won't sail. The first 10,000 strikes crippled Iran's conventional navy. The next 10,000 will likely place a bigger focus on the asymmetrical aspects of Iran's naval approach. But by now, you may be wondering how all of this is possible for the US. Yes, it clearly has the dominant air force long before Operation Epic Fury started. But Iran was supposed to have a layered air defense system that would stop the US in its tracks. That network failed, and the initial strikes that made up part of the 10,000 were a large part of the reason why. Air superiority has been achieved, and the numbers when it comes to Iran's air defenses reveal all. Now, as early as March 5th, the IDF was claiming that about 80% of Iran's air defenses had been taken out of commission, either through direct destruction of the systems themselves or by taking out radars through strikes and cyber attacks. And at that point, the IDF conducted around 2,500 strikes and expended around 6,000 munitions, which itself gives us an idea of just how many weapons the US may have used in its 10,000 strikes. Now, some simple math tells us that the US may have used as many as 24,000 munitions to hit the 10,000 target mark, though this assumes that it is using the same amount of munitions as Israel. Not a huge amount has changed on Iran's air defense front since, not that it really needs to, with 80% of its network already down. Iran has to resort to attempting to defend its skies with isolated systems that are too spread out and often incapable of dealing with the threat that the US poses from the sky. This early shattering of Iran's air defenses has created the air superiority that paved the way for the 10,000 targets hit that Cooper claims. Now, Cooper also points out that the air superiority has extended to the point where America now has its B-52 bomber force executing a high volume of strikes into Iran and demonstrating our unmatched dominance in the air. That statement is revealing because the B-52 is far from the most modern bomber that the US has in its arsenal. First flying in the mid-1950s, the B-52 isn't stealthy. And it isn't all that technologically advanced. What the bomber offers is a ton of storage for munitions that can be dropped in huge...
Have you ever seen a cherry tree that can be planted now and harvested in April?
Shoot. Got the wrong one I pushed. Now I gotta go back. Well, it's about the 6-minute mark. About 4 minutes.
B-52 isn't stealthy, and it's all that technologically advanced. What the bomber offers is a ton of storage for munitions that can be dropped in huge volumes in Iran. If Iran's air defenses were still viable, this bomber wouldn't be able to operate in the country's skies. The B-52 is too big and too easily spotted, even by the older Russian and Chinese air defense systems that make up Iran's network. The fact that it's flying at all showcases just how comprehensively Iran's air defenses have been taken out of the game. And the same could be said of the A-10s and Apache helicopters that the US has deployed in the Strait of Hormuz, both of which are able to fly repeated sorties because the threat that Iran poses to them is now limited to a smattering of isolated air defenses. And with these kinds of airframes in the mix, it's clear that the US has moved from surgical to sledgehammer in Operation Epic Fury. 10,000 targets hit and counting is being made possible because Iran's air defenses are so weak that the US can deploy non-stealth aircraft with massive payloads into the country. But there may be a problem with America's air-based approach. Earlier in the video, we told you that what comes next on Operation Epic Fury may change everything. The Guardian puts this more cynically in a March 26th article, where it claims that the US may have been under a delusion that an easy air victory was at hand, only to find that Iran still has not capitulated to the volume of force of its 10,000 strikes. In other words, the US may not be able to win through air power alone, no matter how effective that power may have been in terms of destroying Iran's military infrastructure. The US may have to follow up, and that would mean boots on the ground. Now, ideally, the US won't end up sending soldiers into Iran. Trump himself has already said that Operation Epic Fury is winding down, and there are several off-ramps that the US is trying to make available to Iran. The 15-point peace plan we mentioned earlier is one of them, as the Trump administration hopes that the damage caused by the US hitting 10,000 targets is enough to cow Iran's regime into submitting to a peace deal that limits its power and nuclear ambitions. That deal would also reopen the Strait of Hormuz, which is the one major lever that Iran still has in play. But if that off-ramp doesn't work, the second off-ramp was hinted at by the White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, on March 25th, when she said President Trump does not bluff and he is prepared to unleash hell. Iran should not miscalculate again. Translation, agree to the peace plan or the US is sending in the soldiers. The US is already preparing for this possibility, and at the time of this video's creation, paratroopers from the 82nd Airborne Division were en route to the Middle East. The US has also deployed 2 Marine Expeditionary Units, or MEUs, one of which has already arrived alongside an amphibious assault group led by the USS Tripoli. Now that means 3,500 American soldiers, including around 2,000 Marines, are already in the Persian Gulf. The arrival of the second MEU will approximately double those numbers, and there may be as many as 3,000 paratroopers. This is a ground invasion force, but it's not one large enough to tackle mainland Iran. Their likely targets will be the islands in and around the Strait of Hormuz, which the US may aim to control both to forcibly reopen the strait and to place massive pressure on Iran's economy. The Washington Post reports that the Pentagon has prepared strategies for several weeks of ground operations in Iran, which likely include the seizure of the key Iranian oil hub, Karg Island. However, Trump has yet to approve these plans. The US is clearly waiting for Iran's next move. Perhaps Iranian Parliament Speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf has already hinted at what that move will be. In its March 29th live reporting of Operation Epic Fury, the BBC reported Ghalibaf as claiming that Iran is waiting for American soldiers to enter on the ground so they can rain fire upon them. Now, Iran's strategy, then, is clear. Its regime has managed to survive the US hitting 10,000 targets from the air. Now it's trying to hold to force a ground operation that increases the risk of the US losing more personnel in Operation Epic Fury. Boots on the ground seem almost inevitable unless something drastic changes very soon. Iran's regime must remember one thing. It's 10,000 strikes and counting, not 10,000 targets and done. If America's Marines and paratroopers do enter Iranian territory, they'll likely be doing it under a firestorm of missiles and bombs that will likely target everything from the remains of Iran's military infrastructure to the soldiers and armor Iran intends to deploy to counter America's ground forces. Boots going on the ground could mean big trouble for Karg Island, which has already been hit by some of the 10,000 strikes that the US has pulled off. That island is everything for Iran's economy, especially when it comes to oil exports, and the biggest US ground invasion in Iran's history may have Karg in its sights. Find out more in our video, and remember to subscribe to the...
Okay, that was another good video for the military video. Another big show there. A lot of good stuff in the... So we'll do the short videos tonight at 5. Take an hour break or so, hour and a half. Go a couple hours. Day's going by fast. See what happens. Thanks, mods. Coming in. Lucy K and Tim. Fine Eagle must be working. Carol is missing. And so, God bless everybody. Love all. Please hit like, sub to the backup channels, please, if you haven't yet. Thank you, and stay safe, stay strong, keep the faith. Remember Bob. Signing off after show number 1, Chico News, March 31st. We'll see you in a little bit.